There are places on Earth where standing before them, you don't feel like you're looking into the past, but confronting something beyond time itself. In arid deserts, suffocating jungles, and on mountain peaks where the air grows thin, ancient structures remain like messages with no sender. Not because they are massive, but because they are precise. Not because they are old, but because they are too accurate, aligned with mathematical, astronomical, and geometric principles that by conventional timelines should have required centuries more to fully systematize. No voice from the past explains them. No surviving records describe their methods. There is only stone silence and questions that grow larger as science advances. Each new archaeological discovery does not close the mystery, it deepens it, as if history itself were a thin surface covering something far more complex beneath. Ancient mysteries are not only about what has been lost, they are about what still remains and what still refuses to reveal its secret. Amid the vast sea of white clouds covering Sanqing Mountain, where towering granite peaks rise like ancient pillars of heaven, there exists a system of cliff shrines so strange that neither archaeologists nor architectural researchers are able to fully explain them. These are the Mount Sanqing cliff shrines, tiny temples clinging tightly to nearly vertical rock faces, positioned in places where at first glance one must ask, how could ancient people ever build structures in locations seemingly never meant for human presence? This very impossibility has turned the entire complex into one of the most unique architectural mysteries of ancient China, where nature and spirituality merge into a whole that is both awe-inspiring and deeply enchanting. Why do you think ancient builders chose to construct shrines on such nearly inaccessible cliff faces? Share your thoughts in the comments below. What makes the Mount Sanqing cliff shrines unlike any other religious monument in the world is the way these shrines were constructed directly on vertical cliff walls in conditions that would make even modern engineers hesitate. Stone platforms jut out like balconies of the heavens. Slender wooden pillars support structures above bottomless ravines, and narrow stone steps barely wide enough for a single foot. Everything creates the sense that a single mistake during construction in ancient times could have sent the entire structure crashing into the abyss, leaving no trace behind. Yet they remain standing firm for centuries, even millennia, despite strong winds, heavy mist storms, and constantly shifting humidity. This raises an enduring question. Why did ancient builders choose such perilous locations for temples? And more importantly, how did they do it? To build a shrine on an inclined or vertical rock surface, the ancient craftsmen had to solve two major challenges: transporting materials to great heights and creating a stable anchor point to support the platform and pillars. Without machinery, without modern pulleys, without mechanical drills, the builders of Mount Sanqing left behind wooden structures implanted directly into natural crevices, large stone slabs carved flat to form bases and beams inserted deep into the extremely hard granite, a feat difficult to imagine when considering they only had hammers, chisels, and manual techniques. Researchers today are puzzled by the precision of these wooden joints. They are positioned at nearly optimal load-bearing points, some embedded so deeply into the rock that even modern technology would struggle to recreate the same placements without damaging the natural cliff. Some surveys suggest the wooden components may have been treated with mixtures of resin and minerals, allowing them to resist decay for hundreds of years, a moisture-proofing technique modern science still cannot fully describe. But the mystery is not limited to engineering. Many shrines contain no inscriptions, no construction dates, and no records of their builders, making them appear like ownerless structures that suddenly emerged in history. They do not resemble large temples commissioned by emperors or associated with major historical events. Instead, they look like constructions created by small groups of hermits, Taoist practitioners or individuals engaged in esoteric spiritual practices, but there is no direct evidence confirming this. This leads to the theory that the cliff shrines may be much older than the documented history of Sanqing, which has been considered a Taoist sacred site for over 16 centuries. Some archaeologists believe certain stone foundations and wooden beams may predate the region's official establishment as a Taoist center, possibly originating from an older local culture or an undocumented phase of secluded spiritual practice. The pathways leading to the shrines deepen the mystery even further. These are not wide, formal paths, but narrow stone tracks hugging the edges of cliffs where a single misstep could cause one to fall into the valley below. Some sections show signs of manual carving, while others look natural or perhaps intentionally crafted to appear natural. The most puzzling detail is how smooth many of these steps are, what wind, rain, or whose footsteps polish them so evenly over time. There is no evidence of large populations living on the mountain, so why do the pathways appear as though they were used by countless travelers across generations? Could these have been secret pilgrimage routes or pathways used by Taoist practitioners seeking to transcend human limitation? Moreover, the locations of the shrines align remarkably with Sanqing's iconic rock formations, the natural pillars representing the Taoist three purities, three supreme deities. This uncanny alignment has led scholars to believe the shrines were placed according to geomancy feng shui and energy pathways rather than convenience or visibility. Some shrines sit precisely at points where the sun's rays penetrate directly into the entrance during solstices or equinoxes, suggesting they may once have served as astronomical observation points marking solar cycles, ceremonial dates, or rituals tied to celestial movements. Yet perhaps the strangest mystery lies in the scale of the shrines. They are extremely small, many only large enough for one person to meditate, or at most, two people standing shoulder to shoulder. Such limited space is unsuitable for communal rituals and unlikely to have hosted public religious activities. So what were they built for? These locations may have been intended for meditation, spiritual communion, or solitary practices requiring absolute isolation. But why construct them in such dangerous places instead of on any of the mountain's flat areas? It seems the ancient practitioners sought extreme conditions, believing that spiritual cultivation succeeded only at the border of heaven and earth, where human will and the forces of nature meet at their most fragile intersection. Another theory proposes that these structures were not temples at all, but designated sites for mountain guardian talismans, objects meant to balance the region's energy or protect it from malevolent forces according to ancient beliefs. If so, their perilous locations were never intended for human visitation, but rather to ensure that the objects placed there remained untouched and unaltered for generations. The existence of the Mount Sanqing cliff shrines thus becomes a chain of unanswered questions. Who built them? With what tools? How did they transport materials up the cliffs? Why have the timber beams not decayed? Why do their locations perfectly match specific geomantic patterns? And above all, why do such extraordinary structures exist for centuries without appearing in official historical records? Today, while tourists may view the shrines from afar or from safer paths, reaching many of them directly remains impossible. Not because of governmental restrictions, but because modern humans simply cannot access those positions without specialized climbing equipment. This inadvertently highlights a paradox the ancient builders achieved, something that even we, with all our modern technology, struggle to replicate in its original form. The Mount Sanqing cliff shrines are not merely symbols of Taoist faith, but reminders that ancient knowledge techniques and belief systems hold depths we have yet to fully understand. Amid the vast silence of the mountains, these tiny shrines seem to whisper of an age in which people built not just for survival, but to touch the sacred, even if it meant hanging over the edge of the abyss to do so. Amid the deep green highlands of Kanheri in Ecuador, where white clouds slide across the mountain slopes and winds sweep through untouched valleys, stands an ancient structure that challenges everything we know about pre-Columbian construction techniques, Ingapirca, the Temple of the Sun. Considered the largest Inca archaeological site in Ecuador, this place is often described as a mysterious fusion between two cultures, the native Kanheri and the later arriving Inca. Yet the more researchers study it, the more they realize that the story of Ingapirca is not merely about the meeting of two civilizations, it is one of the greatest technical mysteries in South American history, embedded especially in the stones, fitted together with a precision seemingly beyond the capabilities of ancient technology. What do you think allowed the ancient builders to achieve such incredible precision in the stonework of Ingapirca, a lost technique, an advanced form of knowledge, or something else entirely? Share your thoughts in the comments below. From a distance, Ingapirca's Temple of the Sun reveals a perfectly elliptical shape, a rarity in Inca architecture, as most of their temples and important structures followed rectangular or square designs. But this elliptical form is not just aesthetic. It reflects astronomical calculations and a deep understanding of the sun's movement, forming the foundation of a structure capable of standing firm for thousands of years, despite storms, earthquakes, and time. What astonishes archaeologists most, and remains the central mystery, is the stone-fitting technique used to build this temple. Massive andesite blocks weighing several tons were polished to perfection, their surfaces meeting so tightly they appear to have been cast from the same mold. There is no mortar, no binding material, only stone locked against stone. Yet the structure is solid enough to withstand centuries of harsh weather. This level of precision forces anyone standing before Ingapirca to ask, how could a civilization without the wheel, without steel, without modern cutting tools, create perfectly flat surfaces and seamless joints through which even the thinnest blade cannot pass? The stones at Ingapirca were not just tightly fitted, they were angled strategically to better withstand pressure, a technique requiring knowledge of material mechanics rarely seen in ancient civilizations. Some researchers suggest the Inca used a sand and water polishing method, but modern simulations show the time required to achieve such smoothness would be absurdly long. Others propose heating the stone and cooling it rapidly to create clean breaks, but that method produces rough surfaces, not the silky smooth and precise joints visible in the temple. Some scholars even dare to ask, could the Inca have inherited an older technique perhaps from the Kanheri themselves, or even from a prehistoric civilization lost to history? This theory gains strength when observing how the Temple of the Sun blends two architectural styles, rough older stones at the lower levels and nearly perfect Inca-style andesite blocks above, especially in the most significant areas. Yet what is curious is that these perfect blocks appear in unusually high concentration here, far beyond what is typically found in Inca structures outside the Cusco region. This raises another question. Why would the Inca employ their most sophisticated construction techniques at a site so far from their imperial center? Could Ingapirca have held special ceremonial or astronomical importance, or even served as a site where only elite stonemasons were permitted to experiment with secret construction methods? A closer look reveals that no two stones at Ingapirca are exactly alike. Each was individually shaped and then fitted together like a massive three-dimensional puzzle. The joints curve and follow the elliptical form with no two angles repeating. This means the Inca had to shape each block precisely to fit its neighbors, an undertaking that would require advanced three-dimensional planning, the kind modern engineers solve using digital modeling. When scientists measured the alignment of the stone rows, they found almost no deviation. Each stone rests in its perfect place, as if someone had pre-programmed the entire structure before construction began. This level of refinement has drawn comparisons to Sacsayhuaman and Machu Picchu. Yet what makes Ingapirca even more enigmatic is its smaller scale. The smaller, finer the stones, the more difficult it is to achieve such flawless joints. A massive block can be reshaped repeatedly to fit others, but the medium-sized stones at Ingapirca seem to have fit perfectly from the first attempt. This indicates not only skill, but deliberate methodology and an almost mechanical level of uniformity. While the stonework often steals the spotlight, Ingapirca also holds a profound astronomical mystery. During the solstices, sunlight passes through stone doorways and strikes a central slab inside the temple, suggesting the entire structure was built to track the sun's path. The combination of architecture and astronomy opens a compelling possibility. The ultra-precise stonework was not only for durability or aesthetics, but also to guarantee the exact positioning required for solar rituals. A deviation of even 1 millimeter could cause the solstice light to miss its target point. This is where Ingapirca's true enigma lies. The extraordinary craftsmanship is inseparable from astronomical knowledge far more advanced than what is typically attributed to the Inca. Local people tell stories of underground tunnels beneath the temple connecting it to other sacred Kanheri sites. Although not fully excavated, these legends suggest Ingapirca was part of a wider sacred network stretching across the mountains, where mysterious stone structures were built in alignment with the sun's movement. No one knows if the tunnels truly exist, but their enduring presence in oral tradition reinforces the deep aura of mystery surrounding the site. Standing at Ingapirca today, many feel they are inside a structure built not just with stone, but with knowledge that has been lost. Modern archaeologists can measure, analyze, and simulate, but cannot replicate the method. Contemporary stone masons could use laser tools to achieve similar precision, yet none can explain how the Inca accomplished this with stone tools and bronze chisels. For this reason, Ingapirca is more than an archaeological site. It is a challenge sent from the past, raising profound questions about the true capabilities of ancient civilizations and the technical secrets humanity may have forgotten. Every time we look at those flawless stone joints, we must ask, did ancient people possess techniques history never recorded, or is Ingapirca simply proof that when a civilization dedicates all its intellect and reverence to the sun, it can create wonders that defy the imagination of its age? In the harsh silence of the Udabno semi-desert, where cracked earth stretches to the horizon and scorching winds sweep relentlessly across burning sandstone slopes, the ancient cave monastery complex Gareja Lavra Caves rises like a timeless ruin, refusing to submit to the ages. Here, ascetic monks of past centuries came to a land where nature seemed intent on driving away all life. Yet this barren place, where even a single plant struggles to survive, became one of the most remarkable religious and artistic centers in the Caucasus. The entire complex was carved directly into the sandstone mountains, forming hundreds of man-made spaces, meditation chambers, chapels, monastic cells, food storage rooms, stepped tunnels, stretching for kilometers. No documents record the carving techniques, but the unusually smooth cuts and the precise curvature of the vaults have led researchers to propose countless theories about a lost craftsmanship. However, the architectural mysteries are only the beginning, for the greatest secret of David Gareja lies deep within the mountain, nearly 1,000-year-old frescoes that still retain their original brilliance. What do you think allowed the nearly 1,000-year-old frescoes at the David Gareja Lavra caves to preserve their astonishing vibrant colors? An ancient secret technique of the monks, or something we still don't fully understand? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Stepping into the cool darkness of the caves feels like walking backward through time, returning to an era when ascetic monks lived in absolute silence, their only light coming from flickering oil lamps. Yet what astonishes modern visitors is not the architecture nor the stillness, but the 10th–13th century frescoes glowing vividly on the rock walls, artworks that defy all conventional understanding. Despite centuries of sun, wind, sandstorms, and waves of conflict, the frescoes have retained colors so vibrant they seem impossible. The reds still burn like embers, symbols of sacrifice and sanctity. The blues, a pigment extremely rare and difficult to produce during the Middle Ages, remain as deep as a sky untouched by time. Yellow, brown, black, and white blend across the sandstone surface, forming dynamic scenes of saints, warriors, martyrs, religious rites, and complex theological symbols. Despite enduring nearly a millennium, the layers of pigment in the frescoes of the Gareja Lavra caves cling to the stone as if they were applied only yesterday. When scientists collected tiny fragments from the walls for analysis, they were astonished to discover that the pigments here differ entirely from those found in monasteries across Georgia, Armenia, or Cappadocia. The mineral components appear to have been processed using a technique absent from all historical records. Some hypotheses suggest that the monks ground natural iron-rich minerals and mixed them with a mysterious organic binder extracted from drought-resistant plants native to the Udabno Desert. Yet no one can explain how such a small, hardy plant could produce durability surpassing even modern conservation technologies. The silence of history has turned this formula into a secret seemingly lost forever, vanishing along with the hands that once created it. The painting techniques are another perplexing mystery. The brushstrokes are so delicate that it is difficult to believe they were made with the crude tools of the Middle Ages. The color layers were applied deliberately to create subtle depth, reminiscent of high Byzantine art rather than local craftsmanship. The faces, whether divine or human, carry eyes that seem to follow the viewer in the dark, an optical effect far beyond the expected capabilities of the time. Scholars have long wondered, was a group of master itinerant artists involved, or did the monks themselves reach an artistic skill level that history has failed to record? Why are there no documents or written accounts describing the process when medieval monasteries typically documented religious activities meticulously? The deeper one goes, the stranger the frescoes become. Some rooms can only be reached by climbing along cliff faces or lowering oneself with ropes. Yet their walls contain artwork so precise that even a slight deviation in perspective would distort the composition. This suggests not only expertise, but a profound understanding of light within confined spaces, an exceptionally rare skill at the time. Some frescoes remain unfinished, the strokes stopping abruptly as if the artist vanished mid-work or was forced to stop for unknown reasons. Some chambers have perfectly prepared plaster surfaces, but no paintings at all, implying that something significant was intended but ultimately abandoned or concealed. Some researchers believe these could have been sites for esoteric rituals reserved for monks who had reached the highest degrees of ascetic practice. But the mystery extends far beyond the art. The frescoes exist within a network of deep tunnels where monks reportedly meditated for days without seeing sunlight. The meditation cells are so small they fit only a single-seated monk. Some tunnels descend so deeply that even modern lighting struggles to reach the bottom. On the walls, many sections display unusually smooth-cut marks completely unlike the chisel traces typical of medieval stoneworking. This raises a disquieting question. Did they possess more advanced tools than we assume? Or did a phase of Caucasian craftsmanship simply disappear from historical record? Outside the caves, the Udabno landscape unfolds like a different world. Winds hurl sand across the plains, the air burns with heat, and the dryness is so severe that paper could turn brittle on its own. There is no stable water source, no forest large enough to provide shelter, and hardly any sign of life. yet hundreds of monks lived here for centuries. How did they survive? What secrets allowed them to sustain a monastic community in a place where modern humans might not last a week? Some theories propose that they collected dew in carved rock basins. Yet such a fragile method seems insufficient to support a large monastery. Others suggest they tapped hidden underground aquifers, yet no drill marks, wells, or channels have been found. Despite all the mysteries surrounding its architecture, monastic life, and this desolate land, the frescoes remain the heart of David Gareja, a living testament to a past far more vibrant and complex than we imagine. They defy time, weather, war, and even modern understanding. They do more than tell religious stories. They whisper of a lost artistic knowledge, a vanished method of pigment making, and a mysterious human resilience forged in the harshest conditions. And when dim light from the cave entrance strikes a fresco and ignites its colors once more, the viewer feels as if witnessing the breath of 1,000 years, still lingering on the stone, as though the ancient monks are still there, silently guarding their secrets. Thirumayam rock-cut fort, situated atop a massive granite hill in Tamil Nadu, is one of the structures that has puzzled archaeologists for decades. From afar, the fort appears like a natural rocky shell, but as one approaches, it becomes clear that most of its architecture was not constructed but carved directly into the mountainside itself. This makes Thirumayam a rare case in Indian history where the boundary between man-made structures and natural terrain seems completely erased. To grasp the extraordinariness of this achievement, one must first understand the hardness of granite, a stone that with primitive metal tools would require tremendous effort just to carve a few centimeters deep. Yet at Thirumayam, the ancients carved not a few centimeters, but entire sections of the mountainside, forming defensive platforms, pathways, stairways, and gun emplacements facing the plains below. What is strange is that all these carved surfaces are smooth, flat, and highly precise, completely unlike the rough marks typically produced by crude iron chisels of medieval South India. What do you think allowed ancient builders to carve an entire fortress into such incredibly hard granite rock? Share your thoughts in the comments below. A close examination of the joints, cut lines, and polished surfaces suggests that the construction techniques used here far exceeded the typical capabilities of the 17th century, the period to which the fort is officially dated. Some surfaces are so flat they look as though they were polished by a continuously rotating tool, while others appear as if a uniformly applied cutting force had simply glided across them. This raises a major question. What technology did the ancients use to create such smooth and precise stone surfaces? While no evidence suggests machinery was involved, no one has been able to explain how builders of that era achieved such uniformity over large areas and in difficult elevated positions on the mountainside. Thirumayam's mountain carving technique is not limited to walls. It is also evident in the long stairways shaped according to the natural curvature of the hill. Each step is cut deep, nearly identical in height, with a precise incline, showing that the ancients had a strong understanding of load distribution on natural rock. Notably, the sloped pathways leading to the fort's summit are flattened according to natural rainwater flow patterns, a detail that reveals meticulous planning since improper handling of runoff could erode the rock surface and jeopardize the structures above. This harmonious merging of man-made architecture with natural topography makes the fort appear like an extension of the mountain itself, concealed, fortified, and far more durable than any masonry wall. The mystery deepens when one examines the carved stone surfaces and finds long grooves and evenly spaced indentations as though made by a tool capable of applying uniform pressure in rhythmic intervals. These marks are completely different from traditional chisel traces, which are typically uneven angled and leave jagged edges. This raises the suspicion that the builders might not have used ordinary chisels at all, but some now lost tool. Though some theorize the use of abrasive rope saws with quartz sand, This method is impractical for large elevated surfaces. The straight, consistent grooves suggest a systematic construction method with excellent vibration control, something very hard to achieve using ancient techniques. Another remarkable detail is that many cut surfaces are located in extremely inaccessible places, high up on steep slopes, or halfway down the rock face. This prompts the question, how did ancient workers maintain stability and precision while working in such conditions? Though they may have used bamboo scaffolding, building a sturdy scaffold on curved, slippery rock is extremely difficult. Yet the surfaces remain perfectly smooth, suggesting that they either possessed highly sophisticated scaffolding techniques or some other form of assistance, something modern builders would struggle to reproduce under similar conditions using primitive tools. The brilliance of Thirumayam is not limited to stone carving. Its architectural strategy showcases advanced military thinking. The fort does not stand apart from nature, it melds into the mountain, bending along the terrain, and using natural elevation as a defensive advantage. Cannon platforms carved deep into the rock provide maximum cover while maintaining wide firing angles. Narrow passages among natural boulders function like open-air tunnels, making it difficult for attackers to distinguish real paths from dead ends. This defensive intelligence seems excessive for a small region like Thirumayam, which was not a major military center. This has led historians to wonder whether the fort once served a more important purpose than the records indicate. Alongside the rock-cut structures, the fort includes sections constructed with massive stone blocks placed so tightly that not even a sheet of paper can fit between them. This calls to mind the megalithic masonry of Peru or Anatolia, though India has its own examples of precise stonework. Still few sites combine both large-scale rock carving and precision dry stone masonry as seamlessly as Thirumayam. The question of how these heavy stones were transported up the slippery rock slopes remains unanswered, especially considering that some weigh hundreds of kilograms. At the base of the fort stand two ancient rock-cut temples, one dedicated to Shiva and the other to Vishnu. Some stylistic elements do not entirely match the known chronology of regional dynasties. This suggests that the temples may predate the fort by several centuries or even longer. If so, Thirumayam is not merely a fort, it is a later construction, built atop a much older sacred site where ancient rituals or esoteric practices once took place. This also explains the fort's location. It stands along a triad alignment connecting the hilltop, the Shiva temple, and the Vishnu temple. Its placement may therefore have been guided not only by military considerations, but also by spiritual, religious, or ancient geomantic knowledge now forgotten. Across the fort's rock surfaces are numerous small cavities, shallow grooves, and round holes with no definitive explanation. Some suggest they once held wooden beams or structural elements. Others believe they were used in ritual practices involving water or fire. More intriguingly, their layout sometimes shows repeated patterns, as if used for measurement or alignment during construction. Some long grooves appear oriented in specific directions, perhaps related to water management or even astronomical observation. A possibility consistent with other ancient South Indian sites that used sunlight or shadows to mark ceremonial times. All of this brings us back to the central question: how did the ancients carve an entire fort into a granite mountainside with such high precision? There are no records describing the construction methods, no evidence of advanced tools, no surviving machinery of any kind. What remains is the structure itself, half natural, half man-made, familiar, yet perplexing. In the architectural history of India, Thirumayam is not the grandest monument, but it is one of the few that hints at a capability the ancients once possessed, the ability to work stone on a massive scale with near-modern precision. This is not merely construction, it is the echo of a forgotten knowledge, a silent mystery carved into a granite hill in Tamil Nadu, challenging our assumptions about the technological limits of ancient civilizations. In the high mountains of Cusco, where cold winds lash against rocky slopes and clouds drift below eye level, Waqra Pukara emerges as a structure that seems to defy the rules of ancient human construction. It is not bustling like Machu Picchu, nor does it possess the polished completeness of well-known ceremonial centers. Instead, it hides among sheer cliffs, revealing itself only to those determined enough to cross the treacherous terrain and withstand the challenge of climbing beyond 4,300 meters. This paradoxical presence has long stirred skepticism among archaeologists who possess the capability to build it. By what means did they transport materials to such heights and construct foundations amid the wild Andes? And above all, why would a structure with no evidence of long-term habitation need to be built with such extraordinary complexity? What do you think truly motivated ancient people to build Waqra Pukara on such an almost impossible cliff? Religious belief, astronomical purpose, or a technique we have yet to uncover? Share your thoughts in the comments below. The most astonishing aspect of Waqra Pukara is its construction on sheer vertical cliffs, an achievement that even modern engineers must study carefully to understand. The mountain on which the structure sits is not a gently sloping or flat surface. It is a rocky promontory naturally cut by millions of years of cold winds, and the Apurimac River, far below, forming a balcony in the sky with three sides dropping hundreds of meters into the abyss. Yet the ancient builders, whether the pre-Inca countries or the Inca themselves, chose this perilous spot as if its danger was part of its appeal. They placed walls, ceremonial platforms, and stairways with uncanny precision along cliff edges where even a few centimeters of misalignment could send the whole construction crashing into the chasm. A closer look at Waqra Pukara reveals dry stone walls that have endured centuries of mountain winds, similar to iconic Inca architecture. But what makes this site exceptional is that its terrain is far more extreme than most known Inca sites. Large stones had to be transported to over 4,000 meters in elevation along narrow mountain paths, barely wide enough for a single person. There is no evidence of large transport roads, temporary construction camps, pulley systems, or advanced metal tools. So how did they haul and position these stones? Did they rely solely on human strength, or did they possess some building technique we have yet to rediscover? Some scholars even question whether the site was constructed by multiple generations or civilizations, which might explain the mixture of architectural styles seen today. From afar, the twin natural rock spires of Waqra Pukara resemble two massive horns rising from the mountaintop, giving the site a presence both sacred and imposing. The name Waqra Pukara in Quechua means fortress of the horns, but this distinctive shape has led to speculation that the site may have been a holy place dedicated to the mountain deity Apu, or another revered spiritual entity. Standing within the ceremonial plaza and gazing at these stone horns, one feels a tangible connection between earth and sky, as if the site were a ritual gateway where people offered prayers to the gods governing the surrounding wilderness. Yet if Waqra Pukara served a spiritual purpose, why was it built like a fortress with multiple defensive-looking walls? Perhaps its military features were only symbolic, while its true purpose lay in the realm of the sacred. Although called a fortress, Waqra Pukara lacks many hallmarks of military architecture. There are no complete watchtowers, no established water systems, and no evidence of long-term troop habitation. This has led many archaeologists to believe that Waqra Pukara was not a military fortress, but rather a center for elites, warriors, priests, or local leaders who performed special rituals there. The precisely laid stone platforms, some aligned with sunrise and sunset, suggest that the site may have served astronomical purposes. However, because the area has not been thoroughly excavated, these theories remain shrouded in mystery like the clouds that envelop the site each afternoon. Another fascinating detail is that Waqra Pukara contains architectural elements from both the pre-Inca Canchis and the Inca. Canchis period walls are rougher, using large but unevenly shaped stones, while Inca additions display far greater precision, sharper cuts, and tighter fits. This indicates that the Inca did not demolish the older structure, but integrated and refined it, proving that Waqra Pukara was important long before their rise. This raises the question, why would a powerful civilization like the Inca preserve an earlier structure instead of fully rebuilding it? Many scholars believe this is evidence that the site was an ancient sacred location, so revered that even the Inca hesitated to alter its foundations. Perhaps the most puzzling aspect is the absence of any signs of permanent habitation. No hearths, no workshops, no long-term living quarters. This indicates that ancient people did not reside here daily. So why build such a monumental and difficult structure in the first place? Creating a massive ceremonial center for occasional use may seem illogical from a modern viewpoint, but for the Andean civilizations who believed every mountain possessed a spirit, extreme and remote locations often symbolized points of contact between the human world and the divine. Waqra Pukara may well have been one of the region's most sacred places, reserved for rare and vital rituals. Finally, Waqra Pukara is surrounded by complete isolation. No major settlements nearby, no broad roads, and no convenient water sources. Building in such a location, instead of choosing a more practical site, suggests its purpose was not related to everyday life, but to something beyond material needs. Its isolation, altitude, sheer cliffs, and the iconic horn-shaped formations have led many scholars to view Waqra Pukara as belonging more to the realm of mythology than history. It stands almost as a statement, a declaration that ancient people could reach places nature seemed to forbid, forging a sacred connection between earth and sky. Today, when standing before Waqra Pukara, one is not merely admiring an ancient structure, one is confronting a profound unanswered question. How did ancient builders create such a marvel on sheer cliffs, using simple tools in such harsh conditions? And more importantly, why did they devote immense effort to a location that appears almost impossible to build upon? The answer may still lie silently within the stone walls of Waqra Pukara, carried by the wind, rushing through the mountain crevices, where time cannot erase the mystery, but also cannot fully reveal it. Hidden deep within the dense forests of Sanjay Gandhi National Park, where morning mist drifts quietly along somber black ridges, the Kanheri caves emerge like an ancient city abandoned by time. Yet what makes this place truly strange is not merely the existence of more than 100 ancient caves, but the question that has haunted archaeologists for decades: how did ancient people carve straight into basalt, one of the hardest stones on Earth, to create not just a few shelters, but an enormous monastic complex that expanded over centuries? Entering Kanheri feels like stepping into another world, a place where stone was not an obstacle, but a medium through which early builders shaped a vast spiritual environment with astonishing precision. From perfectly flat walls and smooth vaulted ceilings to razor-sharp corners and polished pillars, every detail poses the same question: with what tools, with what techniques, and by what means did they achieve such accuracy over 2,000 years ago? Do you think the ancient builders truly used simple tools to carve into basalt a stone as hard as steel? Or did they possess a technique we still haven't uncovered? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Basalt formed from cooled volcanic lava is significantly harder than most sedimentary and softer stones. Carving into it requires exceptionally strong metal tools, great force, and highly skilled surface finishing techniques. Yet at Kanheri, the marks left behind reveal an uncanny uniformity, as if a team of ancient engineers deeply understood the properties of the material and perfected a method to carve large spaces without cracking the surface. The craftsmen did not simply break stone by brute force. They created surfaces so smooth that light gently reflects across them, as if the rock had been polished through multiple refined stages. This was not the work of a few years, but of generations, and the consistency in style and technique suggests a shared standard passed down, perhaps even a method still unknown to us today. Even more mysterious is how they shaped the internal spaces. Kanheri has more than 100 caves each, with its own function: meditation cells, monks' quarters, lecture halls, scripture storage rooms, a grand chaitya hall with a refined vaulted ceiling, and a majestic stupa at its end. All of these spaces were carved directly into the mountain. No bricks, no temporary scaffolding, no evidence of construction in separate stages. To create such large architecture through direct stone cutting, ancient builders needed a deep understanding of load distribution, roof stability, and a precise construction sequence to avoid structural failure. Many modern researchers view Kanheri as an ancient engineering megaproject shaped by architects whose mastery of measurement and alignment surpassed that of many civilizations of the same era. Marks on the walls and ceilings suggest the ancient builders may have used measuring strings, straight rods, and possibly durable metal tools. But could simple hammers and chisels alone produce halls tens of meters high with perfectly curved roofs and rows of columns aligned flawlessly? Some scholars propose that highly specialized craftsmen existed trained for many years and passing down their expertise across generations. Others believe that the uniform design of more than 100 caves implies centralized supervision, perhaps from a powerful monastery or religious institution. Regardless, the stone carving techniques at Kanheri remain unanswered mysteries. If we tried to recreate them today using ancient tools, could we achieve the same precision? Venturing deeper reveals that Kanheri is not just a collection of isolated caves, it is an organized stone city. Long stairways, narrow corridors, and winding paths cut into the terrain connect caves across multiple levels, forming an enormous network. This made Kanheri one of the largest monastic centers in India for more than a millennium. And remarkably, everything began with stone carving. Every passageway, every chamber, every circulation route was shaped directly from solid basalt. No assembled structures, no added materials, no modular components. Kanheri's architecture stands as a testament to ancient patience and philosophy, transforming an entire mountain into a living monastery. Kanheri also contains an ancient water management system, considered a masterpiece of hydraulic engineering. Across the mountain slopes, meticulously carved channels collect monsoon rainwater and direct it toward large cisterns distributed throughout the complex. These reservoirs were not simply pits. They were designed with deliberate depth, width, and placement to maximize water retention. Many still function more than 1,000 years later, proving the durability and ingenuity of their creators. To design such a system on basalt terrain was extraordinarily challenging. Each channel had to be carved at a precise gradient, or the water would not flow. This strengthens the theory that ancient Kanheri possessed technical understanding beyond what historical records currently acknowledge. Inside the caves, statues of Bodhisattva Avalokiteshvara, reliefs influenced by Gandhara art, and motifs reminiscent of Mathura work appear side by side, forming an unusual blend seldom seen elsewhere. Facial expressions, postures, and stylistic details reveal influences from multiple cultural regions, indicating that Kanheri was once a major intercultural node along trade routes. Brahmi and Devanagari inscriptions, etched deeply into the stone, speak of merchant scholars and kings who visited, donated, studied, and taught here. This reinforces the idea that Kanheri was once a lost Buddhist university, gathering intellectuals from across the Indian subcontinent. Yet why did such an influential center vanish from historical memory? Why are its teachers, traditions, and academic system not fully recorded? This absence only deepens Kanheri's enigma. Most astonishing of all the Chaitya Hall's grand ritual spaces possess strange acoustic properties. When a monk chants, at one end, the sound carries clearly and evenly, as though enhanced by modern architectural design. The vaulted ceiling, aligned pillars, and open space before the stupa seem intentionally arranged to create perfect resonance. But did ancient builders truly understand acoustics at such a sophisticated level? Or is this a fortunate byproduct of their construction methods? The question remains unresolved. Among the 100-plus caves, many spaces remain unexplained wall niches, with unknown purposes, peculiar stone platforms, meditation rooms, with puzzling layouts and mysterious markings carved into the rock. These elements resemble fragments of a forgotten narrative, faint traces of knowledge that disappeared, leaving only silent clues etched in stone. At the heart of everything lies the greatest mystery. What technique allowed ancient people to carve basalt on such a monumental scale to create Kanheri? Without large furnaces, without machines, without modern measuring tools, they produced a massive stone complex with extraordinary precision and durability. Every corner stairway and pillar that still stands today challenges the modern world. Do you truly understand how we did this? Kanheri Caves, silent for millennia, still refuse to answer, and that silence is exactly what makes them one of the most compelling archaeological enigmas in ancient India. On the desolate mountainsides of ancient Gandhara, where the wind whispers through the rocks like echoes from a vanished world, the Ranigat Buddhist complex rises as a strange witness of history, a place where time seems to have stopped between stone and silence. No one knows who first chose this mountain as the site for an enormous Buddhist center. No one knows what compelled them to place multi-ton stone blocks onto steep, unforgiving slopes. But one thing is certain. Ranigat is not an ordinary construction. It is a mystery, a question left open, challenging archaeological knowledge and the imagination of anyone who attempts to uncover the truth behind it. What do you think truly lies behind the mysterious construction of the Ranigat Buddhist complex, advanced ancient engineering, forgotten knowledge, or something we still cannot explain today? Share your thoughts in the comments below. As one moves deeper into the complex, a striking realization emerges. The architecture here is not only large, but impossibly so, forcing anyone to pause and look twice. Towering walls, circular stupa bases, and massive foundations were built from stone blocks as tall as an adult. Yet the most astonishing detail lies not in their size, but in the technique used to assemble them. Anyone visiting Ranigat in search of mortar clay resin or any form of binding material will return empty-handed. The entire complex was erected using dry stone construction, meaning each block, some weighing hundreds of kilograms, others several tons, was placed with such precision that they locked together solely through weight and shape. What makes Ranigat truly astonishing is the perfect alignment of its massive stone blocks. Many of them retain their naturally rough surfaces, while others were only trimmed slightly at key points. Yet when fitted together, they lock seamlessly, as if cut by modern machinery. Researchers have found gaps so thin that even a single hair can barely pass through a level of precision no one would expect from a mountain monastery thousands of years old. This raises a series of profound questions. Who possessed such sophisticated techniques? Why would a monastic complex require near-perfect accuracy? And how did they transport these enormous stones up steep terrain only to assemble them with a precision that challenges even modern engineering? What makes Ranigat even more perplexing is its seemingly impossible durability in a region constantly shaken by earthquakes. For thousands of years, countless powerful quakes have destroyed major cities throughout the area, yet Ranigat remain standing almost unmoved. The stones were never bonded with mortar, so why did they not slip out of place? What has kept the tall walls upright through repeated violent tremors? Did the ancient builders understand how to distribute weight and pressure across each block, an engineering knowledge far ahead of its time? Or did they possess a construction method now lost a secret once known, but vanished without trace? Perhaps it was the intuitive genius of a culture whose understanding we can no longer fully grasp. As modern archaeology turns its attention to Ranigat, a series of theories begins to emerge, yet none are strong enough to fully explain the extraordinary construction techniques of this complex. Some scholars suggest that the dry stone method may have been a long-standing local tradition, passed down through generations of stonemasons. However, this argument quickly weakens as no nearby settlements or structures display a scale or refinement comparable to Ranigat. Another group believes that Gandharan monks and artisans might have learned these techniques from distant civilizations through ancient trade routes, but archaeology has found no clear evidence of such deep technical exchange. This leads to an even bolder hypothesis: Ranigat may have been the work of a group of master stonemasons individuals with exceptional skill who traveled from site to site, building remarkable structures. If that is true, who were they? Why is there no record of their existence? And how did they create a technique that even modern architects struggle to understand? Delving deeper into Ranigat, the mystery lies not only in the individual stone blocks, but in how the entire complex is arranged as if following an invisible blueprint. There are no drawings, no guiding inscriptions, yet the structures connect with one another in a way that feels deliberately and astonishingly precise. The circular stupa bases are aligned in smooth, consistent arcs, almost as though they were modeling a celestial system or a secret ritual diagram. The monastic quarters sit on perfectly leveled terraces, suggesting that the builders calculated height, orientation, and gravitational balance with remarkable subtlety. Most strikingly, the heaviest stones appear exactly at the key load-bearing points, as if someone understood the structural dynamics of the whole complex with expert clarity. Altogether, it creates the impression that Ranigat was built from a blueprint held only in the minds of its craftsmen, a knowledge never written down, now lost to time, leaving behind questions that no one has ever been able to answer. When examining the stones of Ranigat closely, one notices that many blocks do not bear natural shapes. They were intentionally carved, forming smooth curves or sharp edges as if cut with highly refined tools. The strange part is that the stone found here is extremely hard, making such clean, precise cuts nearly impossible to achieve with primitive implements. This contradiction raises a pressing question. Did ancient stonemasons possess metal tools far superior to anything archaeology has uncovered, or did they know a technique for softening stone, a secret method mentioned in various legends but never proven? It is also possible that they used a completely unknown technique, one capable of producing a level of precision that makes modern observers wonder whether they are looking at the traces of knowledge that has long been lost. Another fascinating element is the way the stone layers were stacked, so that the weight of the upper blocks presses down and locks the lower layers into place. This gravity-locking method is extremely unforgiving. One miscalculation could destabilize the entire structure. Yet Ranigat has not only remained stable, it has endured for millennia, resisting harsh terrain, extreme weather, and repeated seismic shocks. This prompts a deeper question. Was this purely a practical engineering technique, or did it carry ritual or philosophical meaning? Could each tier of stone reflect spiritual concepts of stability, enlightenment, and cosmic order as understood by the people of Gandhara? And then comes an even greater mystery. Why was such a meticulously built, large-scale Buddhist center abandoned? No records describe its downfall. No evidence of major conflict, fire, or natural disaster explains its disappearance from religious life. It simply faded away. Monks, artisans, and residents left the site, taking their stories with them, leaving behind a silent city of stone. What happened? A shift in religious landscape, the collapse of Gandharan Buddhist networks, or some larger upheaval that history failed to preserve. Today, standing among these giant stones, modern visitors cannot help but feel small. The stone walls seem to observe us, posing questions no one can fully answer. For Ranigat is not merely a ruin. It is a message, an unsolved equation. A reminder that there are techniques, knowledge, and philosophies of the ancient world that we have lost. And as long as those stones continue to stand on the mountainside, the mystery of Ranigat will endure, waiting for future generations to seek the truth. Amid the ancient heritage landscape of Butrint, where wetlands and mangrove-like growth have swallowed thousands of years of history, stands a structure both magnificent and mysterious, Butrint Baptistry. From the very first glance, it appears unlike any baptistry in the ancient Christian world. It is too large, too sophisticated, too complex, and seems to have been built for a ritual purpose far beyond ordinary baptism. Here, every stone block, every mosaic pattern, every architectural detail contains a story that archaeologists are still striving to decipher. If the water system of the Butrint Baptistry was truly far ahead of its time, what do you think caused that knowledge to disappear from history? Share your thoughts in the comments below. First of all, the scale of this baptistry is astonishing. Its diameter far exceeds the standard of any auxiliary church structure, rivaling the size of smaller Mediterranean basilicas of late antiquity. The interior is organized in a circular layout, with two concentric rings of columns standing around the center. This dual-ring design is almost unheard of in other baptisteries, prompting scholars to wonder why a small marshside settlement like Butrint needed a baptismal building of such monumental scale. The population in the 5th–6th centuries was nowhere near large enough to justify such grandeur. This raises the suspicion that the baptistry once served a broader religious community, or that it had been a major ceremonial site long before being converted into a place for Christian baptism. No less mysterious is the vast mosaic floor that stretches across the entire interior, composed of countless tiny tesserae, forming one of the most exquisite mosaic artworks surviving from the ancient world. Deer leopards, birds fish, grapevines, water vessels all appear in a composition that does not fully follow traditional Christian symbolism. Several motifs even resemble pagan iconography, suggesting that this space may once have belonged to an older religious tradition before Christianity became dominant. Even more perplexing, the mosaic has remained remarkably well preserved despite the extremely humid, flood-prone conditions of Butrint. This has led archaeologists to suspect that the binding materials used here may have been far more advanced than we typically attribute to technologies of that era. But one of the greatest architectural enigmas lies in the octagonal form of the baptistry, with each side of the eightfold shape symbolizing Christian rebirth. Yet Butrint does not follow the usual octagonal model. Its two rings of columns are arranged with such precision, each distance, each proportion, that the entire interior achieves perfect structural harmony. The spatial configuration feels less like a newly built monument and more like a sophisticated reconstruction grafted onto an older structure, perhaps a Roman bath or a pre-Christian ceremonial hall. Whether this is the case or not, uniting two architectural generations into one seamless whole would have required expertise in load distribution, structural integration, and circular design beyond what was common at the time. However, none of these features surpass the greatest mystery of all: the water supply system of the baptismal font, a technological achievement so advanced that it appears to contradict the engineering capabilities of the 5th century. The font sits at the center of the baptistry, lined with marble and encircled by columns marking the holiest point of the entire complex. Yet its elegance is not what astonishes researchers. It is how the water flows in and drains out completely automatically in cycles functioning reliably for centuries without any manual or mechanical pumping. When inspecting the sub-mosaic layers, experts discovered a network of terracotta pipes positioned with such precision that a deviation of only a few millimeters could have blocked the entire mechanism. But the system is flawless, as though it were designed using modern hydraulic principles. Its operation is even more extraordinary. Water from natural underground sources enters the font using hydrostatic pressure, creating a gentle continuous flow strong enough to refresh the basin but not erode it. Once water reaches a specific level, an outflow channel activates, automatically balancing pressure and triggering a natural water replacement cycle. The remarkable part is that the marble basin shows almost no erosion at all, meaning its designers must have possessed a sophisticated understanding of flow rate turbulence and material strength. Many archaeologists admit that Butrint's hydraulic design surpasses that of many major Roman cities. Engineers of the era appear to have calculated underground pressure pipeline gradient and installation depth with astonishing accuracy, all without leaving behind any written technical documentation. For this reason, the mechanism remains a complete mystery. Butrint sits on soft, waterlogged soil. So how did the baptistry avoid sinking? Core samples revealed that its foundations were reinforced with a mixture of crushed brick lime and sand, and ancient waterproof concrete. This foundation not only keeps the structure stable, but also interacts harmoniously with the hydraulic system beneath, allowing pressure changes without damaging the building. In other words, its builders understood exactly how to stabilize a monumental structure directly above a groundwater system, a skill even medieval European engineers often lacked. The baptistry was not an isolated monument. It lies within a network of ancient structures, Roman baths, early Christian basilicas, and ceremonial rooms. Yet their chronological sequence remains unclear. The location of the baptistry, set apart from the basilica instead of adjoining it, raises further questions. Was this site aligned with a sacred water source? If so, the advanced hydraulic system may have been not only a technological achievement, but also a central element of ritual significance. Archaeological evidence suggests multiple phases of religious transition. Pagan motifs embedded in the mosaic, the dual ring layout, and the prominence of water purification rituals all indicate that this may have been the center of a syncretic local belief system, blending indigenous traditions with early Christianity. Some scholars even propose that the site may have been built by craftsmen possessing unusually advanced knowledge, possibly inheriting skills from Roman hydraulic engineers or belonging to a local tradition whose techniques have since disappeared. Today, after many centuries, Butrint Baptistry still stands amid humid marshes, defying time and scientific explanation. No ancient texts describe how it was built, and no surviving documents detail its hydraulic mechanism. This silence itself has turned the baptistry into one of Europe's most enduring archaeological mysteries, a reminder that ancient civilizations may have understood the natural world far more deeply than we assume. Deep within the dense jungles of Guatemala, where dark green foliage conceals every trace of time, lies a place that seems not to belong to the present world. This is Quirigua, Stela Plaza, the sacred square where the ancient Maya erected colossal stone monuments, silent, solemn figures that appear to narrate a story modern humans still lack the language to understand. The stelae of Quirigua are not only the largest in the entire Maya world, they also contain carvings so intricate that modern archaeologists cannot help but ask, could these truly have been created using nothing more than primitive tools of stone wood and quartz. Do you think the Maya truly carved these incredibly detailed lines using only primitive stone tools, or might they have used a lost technique we no longer understand? Share your thoughts in the comments below. In the 8th century, Quirigua experienced a burst of creativity and political transformation that reshaped its identity. During this brief yet spectacular era, its rulers sought to immortalize their dominance not through towering pyramids or sprawling palaces, but through colossal sandstone monoliths, some nearly 10 meters tall and weighing dozens of tons. These were not mere monuments. They were proclamations in stone declarations of cosmic authority. But what truly astonishes modern observers is not their height or weight. It is the impossibly refined craftsmanship found in every contour. Sandstone, while softer than basalt or granite, is still far from easy to manipulate. Yet the Quirigua artisans carved deep, unwavering lines that maintain absolute consistency across entire surfaces. Curving patterns flow with an organic softness. Faces display subtle emotional nuance, and glyph blocks composed of extraordinarily complex symbols are rendered with crisp clarity. These achievements were made without metal chisels. The Maya of this region had no iron, no copper, no bronze, and no evidence of any hardened metal blades. Excavations reveal only stone hammers, wooden mallets, and pieces of quartz, believed to have been used to score or incise the stone surface. How such primitive tools could create the symmetrical, mechanically precise details visible today is a question that continues to perplex researchers. The more one studies these carvings, the more they seem to rival, if not surpass, the precision of classical sculptures, created with far more advanced toolsets. When specialists analyze the stelae up close, the mystery deepens. Many carvings show uniform depth and width, sometimes extending across large surfaces without even a subtle deviation. Traditional chisel work almost always leaves small fractures or flaking along the edges, yet these features are mysteriously absent. Even more perplexing, some grooves are so narrow that modern metal tools barely fit into them, yet the Maya carved them with astonishing exactness. Researchers have proposed several theories. One is the indirect percussion method, placing a quartz rod against the stone and striking it with a hammer. But even this technique tends to produce chipped edges and unevenness, none of which appear in Quirigua's carvings. Another theory is abrasion, grinding down the sandstone with quartz sand. But to achieve the depths observed on many stelae, using abrasion alone would require unimaginable labor over many years, far more than the historical construction window allows. Thus arises the central question: did the Maya possess a technique we no longer understand, something that allowed them to manipulate stone with a precision far beyond what their tools suggest? Some anthropologists propose that artisans worked in teams with incredible coordination and skill passed down through generations. Others believe they used advanced knowledge of stone properties or vibration methods, though no physical evidence has verified this. Still others speculate that the artisans mastered subtle techniques similar to those used in other ancient civilizations known for their stonework mysteries, such as Egypt or Tiwanaku. A striking characteristic of Quirigua's monuments is the perfection of their symmetry. Human faces, ritual headdresses, serpentine bodies, and geometric forms appear in mirror-like balance, as if measured with exacting tools. Yet not a single artifact resembling a straight-edge compass plumb line or grid has been found at the site. Maya glyphs add another layer to the enigma. These symbols are not merely decorative, they encode historical events, cosmological concepts, royal titles, dates, and intricate mythological references. Each glyph is its own mini-sculpture, containing curves, dots, inflections, and animated expressions. A minor mistake could alter the entire meaning of a passage. Yet hundreds of glyphs were carved onto surfaces that curve inward, bulge outward, twist around corners, or angle sharply downward. Even modern sculptors, equipped with steel tools and electric grinders, would find such placements challenging. That the Maya achieved this consistency under such conditions suggests not only incredible talent, but possibly a systematic methodology, a method that has yet to be reconstructed. As scholars confront these anomalies, more unconventional theories emerge. Some argue that artisans may have used a softening agent, a plant-based solution capable of partially dissolving or weakening the stone surface. Legends among various South American communities speak of plants that melt rock, though no such substance has been verified in laboratory conditions. Another hypothesis proposes that the Maya exploited thermal shock, heating the stone and then rapidly cooling it to weaken its structure before carving. But again, no burn marks, fire pits, or tool evidence supports this at Quirigua. If neither chemical softening nor advanced abrasion can fully explain the carvings, then what can? Perhaps we are missing an entire category of tool, one made of perishable material. Perhaps the artisans used rhythmic impact techniques similar to tuning forks. Or perhaps they possessed a refined understanding of resonance and vibration that allowed them to chip away stone with surprising accuracy. Whatever the truth, the techniques used at Quirigua remain undocumented, unverified, and beyond our present comprehension. Equally compelling is the question of purpose. Why did Quirigua channel so much energy into monoliths instead of architecture? Unlike many Maya cities filled with towering temples, Quirigua's identity crystallized around its stelae. Archaeologists have discovered that these monuments align with solar event solstices, equinoxes, zenith passages, and possibly even lunar cycles. Seen from above, the plaza begins to resemble a massive astronomical instrument, a landscape of stone markers intended to synchronize religious ceremonies, agricultural cycles, and political authority with celestial rhythms. To the Maya, time was alive, cyclical, divine, and inseparable from the cosmos. Each stela may have served not merely as a historical record, but as an anchor point in the sacred structure of time itself. Whether this celestial function was fully understood by all or reserved for priest astronomers, the engineering precision behind the layout is undeniable. Among all the mysteries of Quirigua, the zoomorphs perhaps provoke the deepest sense of awe. These enormous boulder-like sculptures, some weighing up to 80 tons, represent mythical creatures, blending jaguar, serpent bird, and human features. Their surfaces undulate with curves that seem impossibly fluid for stone, rising and folding in a way reminiscent of clay rather than hardened sandstone. Carving such shapes would have required not only precision, but also a three-dimensional vision of extraordinary sophistication. These forms are not shallow reliefs, they plunge deeply into the stone, transitioning from high ridges to soft recesses with a finesse that defies assumptions about Maya technology. If the stelae test the limits of what is possible with primitive tools, the zoomorphs push those limits even further. Quirigua's rise is as mysterious as its decline. Once a subordinate polity under the great city of Copan, it abruptly gained independence after a dramatic political upheaval. Freed from its former overlords, Quirigua entered a period of artistic and ceremonial explosion. Within a few decades, its rulers commissioned the tallest stelae ever seen in the Maya world. Yet this golden age faded just as quickly. The population dwindled, construction ceased, and the city sank into obscurity without signs of war, famine, or catastrophic environmental collapse. What triggered this quiet abandonment? Economic instability, shifting trade routes, changes in ideology, or something deeper? perhaps a disruption in the very system that justified the Stela's creation. To this day, the reasons remain unknown. Quirigua rose as suddenly as it vanished. Today, standing before these colossal monuments, people are struck not only by their size and grandeur, but also by something more elusive. They seem designed not just to endure, but to challenge our modern understanding, to challenge the limits of ancient technology, and to challenge history itself, as their razor-sharp carvings continue to whisper a simple question that no one has yet been able to answer. How did they do this? Otrar Citadel, once one of the most radiant fortresses along the Silk Road, now survives only as mounds of earth-worn foundations and walls eroded by time. Yet behind this ruined facade lie countless layers of mystery that even modern archaeologists have not been able to fully decipher. This city was once a great center of knowledge trade, craftsmanship, and scholarship in the medieval Islamic world. It also witnessed one of the most world-shaking events in human history. However, what astonishes researchers the most is not its rapid destruction, nor the disappearance of its people, but an irrigation system and a water management technology so advanced that it surpasses the understanding of its era. And after Otrar fell, no comparable technique ever reappeared in the region. This enigma has made Otrar one of the most perplexing ancient cities on the Central Asian steppe. Do you think Otrar's sophisticated water system was created by the city's own inhabitants, or could it belong to an even older, forgotten civilization? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Walking through Otrar today, one does not merely see the remnants of a once great city. One feels the depth of a history stretching back millennia. This was not a single city, but many cities built atop one another, each cultural layer resting upon the last. This stratification raises countless unanswered questions. How did ancient people sustain such a large urban center in an arid steppe where water had to be transported from afar? And why did the irrigation system that once supported tens of thousands of inhabitants vanish mysteriously, leaving no trace of its techniques in later periods? According to modern research, Otrar possessed a complex irrigation network stretching several kilometers, channeling water from the Aris River deep into the city. The sophistication of this system has astonished experts. The gradient of the canals was calculated with near-perfect precision, allowing water to flow steadily for centuries without constant reconstruction. Sections of clay pipes were fitted together so tightly that they were almost completely leak-proof, raising major questions about the manufacturing techniques used by Otrar's engineers. Some pipes display interior surfaces that are perfectly round with thick uniform walls, an achievement extremely difficult to accomplish using medieval tools. How could a city isolated in the steppe far from major technological hubs attain such a high level of hydraulic engineering? Even stranger is the fact that after Otrar was destroyed by the Mongol invasion, no civilization in the region ever recreated a comparable irrigation system despite having access to its remains. This has led to numerous theories. Perhaps the knowledge of water engineering perished, with the scholars killed in the massacre. Or perhaps these techniques belonged to a specialized group of engineers, not documented in historical texts. Some new archaeological studies even suggest that the water system predates Otrar's Islamic era, possibly originating from a much older civilization, one whose identity remains unknown. Today, when excavating the buried canals, experts have discovered that the builders used an extraordinarily precise water regulation model. The depth of each canal segment changes intentionally, preventing spring floods while maintaining a steady flow in the dry season. Some sections contain layered sediment trap basins, possibly ancient filtration stations designed to catch sand and silt before the water entered the city. This far exceeds what scholars believed 13th century hydraulic engineering could achieve. How could a city in the middle of nowhere possess a hydraulic system so precise that modern engineers need laser scanning tools just to simulate its original operation? This remains one of the greatest mysteries surrounding Otrar. Ancient writings describe Otrar as home to a grand library containing thousands of manuscripts, where scholars gathered to exchange knowledge in mathematics, astronomy, and hydraulic engineering. If this was true, the city's sophisticated water system may have been the result of long-term research spanning many generations. Yet the fate of this library was tragic. Some sources say it was burned, looted, or buried under layers of earth. No one knows how many manuscripts documenting its water technology were lost. If a portion of humanity's scientific knowledge once resided here, then the Mongol destruction of Otrar may have erased an invaluable body of knowledge from history forever. At the same time, Otrar's multi-layered mud brick fortification walls also display surprising engineering ability. Although unrelated to the water system, these walls show advanced structural planning with features resembling anti-seismic techniques, even though the region is not a major earthquake zone. This further supports the theory that the people of Otrar possessed highly advanced technical knowledge with their water management engineering, likely just one example of their broader capabilities. Another riddle surrounding Otrar is the disappearance of its inhabitants after the city fell. Historical accounts describe the city as abandoned for generations, yet archaeologists have found no burial grounds large enough to match the enormous populations that once lived there. There is no clear evidence of mass migration, nor signs of mass death on the expected scale. This has led some scholars to speculate, did a portion of the population leave before the catastrophe, as if they foresaw the city's fate? If they carried their hydraulic knowledge with them, where did they go? And why did no later civilization in the region exhibit signs of inheriting that knowledge? The city's archaeological layers offer no easy explanations. Artifacts from different eras appear together in the same strata, as if the cultural development of Otrar had been interrupted or fragmented in unusual ways. This inconsistency has led researchers to suspect that the region may have been a center of trade and irrigation long before the Silk Road existed. If true, the water system might be thousands of years older than expected, representing traces of a civilization completely absent from mainstream history. Local legends speak of the treasure of Otrar, a cache of gold manuscripts and valuables supposedly hidden by scholars and nobles before the Mongol attack. Excavations, however, have never uncovered a large underground chamber as described in these tales. Yet curiously, many collapsed tunnels beneath the city resemble segments of the ancient water channels. This has sparked theories that Otrar once had a dual underground network, one for water and another for concealing knowledge and wealth. Another layer of mystery lies in the difficulty of dating the water structures. Some canal segments display engineering totally different from the city walls or residential buildings. Other segments contain materials that do not match the documented historical period. This raises the possibility that the water system was inherited from engineers outside Otrar, or from a completely different era, unrecorded in history. Every excavation yields more questions than answers, blurring the picture of Otrar's hydraulic knowledge like a forgotten scientific legacy. Today, international archaeological teams study Otrar using ground-penetrating radar stratigraphic scanning and hydraulic flow simulations to reconstruct its water system. Yet despite modern technology, no model fully explains how the system endured for centuries in such a harsh climate. This suggests that the builders did more than simply channel water. They understood the terrain, mastered material science, and created harmony between nature and infrastructure. Such knowledge remains challenging even for modern engineers. Perhaps this is why the greatest mystery of Otrar does not lie in its walls, its wars or its legends, but in the invisible water that once sustained the entire city. It is the last surviving trace of a magnificent intellectual tradition, a technology far ahead of its time, yet swallowed by history. When one looks at the dry, silent channels beneath the Kazakh sands, it is impossible not to wonder, are we seeing the work of a vanished people or the remnants of a civilization never recorded in historical texts? And more importantly, did Otrar once hold a secret about water that humanity has yet to rediscover? Anuradhapura Jetavanaramaya is one of the greatest ancient wonders ever built by human hands, and even today it stands as a colossal enigma that defies our understanding of ancient engineering, religion, and political power in Sri Lanka. Seen from afar, the structure resembles an artificial mountain of bricks, rising from the sacred ancient city of Anuradhapura. But the closer one approaches, the clearer it becomes. This monument is not just large, it is extraordinary in the literal sense. Originally reaching around 122 meters in height, Jetavanaramaya was once the tallest brick stupa in the ancient world, and at the time of its completion, it ranked among the tallest structures humanity had ever erected, surpassed only by some of Egypt's great pyramids. Yet height alone was never what astonished researchers. The entire stupa consists of millions of bricks stacked with such precision that it seems almost unbelievable. No steel, no reinforced concrete, no machinery, only human labor and a type of material that even modern scientists admit was far ahead of its time. Do you think the ancients truly possessed a lost construction technology, or is Jetavanaramaya simply the result of extraordinary skill we still don't fully understand? Share your thoughts in the comments below. When examining Jetavanaramaya, scientists discovered something shocking. The bricks used to construct the stupa possess a compressive strength of up to 16,000 psi, significantly higher than most standard bricks produced with today's industrial technology. This means that under the massive weight of the entire structure, estimated to be hundreds of thousands of tons, these ancient bricks do not break, crack, or deform. What allowed ancient builders to create such super durable material, and more importantly, why was a religious monument built to such extreme engineering standards? The answer remains speculation. Some archaeologists believe the ancient Sri Lankans possessed lost knowledge of mineral mixing. They may have used rare clays with extremely fine particle density special oxide minerals, or multi-stage firing processes that produced remarkable purity. Ancient records describe an extremely strict selection of clay. Only certain regions could supply material pure enough for the stupa. Builders were believed to have mixed the clay with secret additives, sometimes ground plants, sometimes minerals from stream beds, to create a compound that once fired became nearly indestructible. Each brick was made to precise dimensions to maximize tightness when stacked, and researchers noted virtually no variation between batches, even though they were produced over a millennium ago. Some bold theories even suggest ancient Sri Lankan kilns may have achieved temperatures that modern traditional kilns struggle to produce consistently. Even more astonishingly, Jetavanaramaya does not rely solely on ultra-durable bricks, but also on a sophisticated understanding of load distribution. At the base of the stupa lies a wide foundation, and the spherical geometry of the structure disperses weight evenly into the ground. Each brick layer was arranged along a perfect curvature, allowing gravity itself to lock the bricks together into a stable mass. Many modern architects who have studied the monument admit that calculating curvature gradient and gravitational forces to prevent cracking in a structure of this magnitude would be extremely complex, even with computer modeling. Yet the ancients achieved it with experienced collective knowledge and the simplest of tools. What is even more remarkable is that Jetavanaramaya has survived numerous strong earthquakes in Sri Lanka, tremors that should have severely damaged a purely brick structure. instead left only surface erosion over time, while the core remained nearly unchanged. Some scholars suggest that the alternating curved layers of bricks acted like a natural shock absorber, helping the structure dissipate seismic energy. This raises an intriguing question. Did the ancients truly understand seismic engineering, or did they accidentally create an optimal design without knowing why it worked? Inside Jetavanaramaya lies yet another layer of mystery. The monument is not completely solid. Various hollow sections, sealed corridors, and pressure relief chambers remain unexplored. Some areas seem intentionally sealed from the moment of construction, prompting archaeologists to wonder what might lie within. Many legends claim that the stupa houses sacred relics placed deep in the core at a location inaccessible without risking collapse. Yet no modern survey has confirmed this, as drilling into the stupa would be too dangerous. Thus, the secret of Jetavanaramaya's heart remains intact, as though the ancients intended it to stay hidden from future generations. Jetavanaramaya is not only a technical marvel, but also a symbol of political and religious conflict in Sri Lankan history. King Mahasena, the ruler who commissioned the monument, was once considered a heretic for supporting the Mahayana tradition instead of Theravada orthodoxy. The construction of the stupa may have been an effort to consolidate power and proclaim divine legitimacy. But this also ignited centuries of debate. History has not clearly recorded whether the monument was built for devotion politics or something far more complex. What is certain, however, is that Jetavanaramaya could not have existed without immense manpower. Thousands of craftsmen, dozens of teams transporting materials, and the Jetavana monastery, which once housed between 3,000 and 5,000 monks. Jetavanaramaya is also a perfect example of how ancient people blended religion, architecture, and science. Each brick carried not only material purpose, but also ritual meaning. Placing bricks in specific orientations, following strict axial layouts, and using purified materials were believed to accumulate merit for the entire community. This turned construction into a long communal spiritual event, rather than a mere technical task. Ancient documents even describe ceremonies performed before laying the first bricks, and each brick placed thereafter was seen as an act of devotion. Despite all its wonders, the greatest mystery still lies in the brick technology. Why do Jetavanaramaya's bricks surpass even modern industrial bricks? What did the ancients understand about materials? Did they possess formulas now lost to time? Or did they use mineral sources that no longer exist? Many brick samples show extremely uniform, micro-mineral alignment, something usually achieved only through modern controlled temperature kilns. And yet more than 1,000 years ago, they managed to achieve this without machines, industrial processes, or precise measuring tools. Seen in a broader sense, Jetavanaramaya may prove that ancient scientific and engineering knowledge was far more advanced than we often assume. Perhaps we simply have not fully understood it. Today, standing at the base of the stupa, one feels dwarfed by the towering mass of brick stretching into the sky. Each brick seems to contain a story, a secret, a trace of the hands that shaped it centuries ago. Jetavanaramaya is not just a religious structure. It is a reminder that the past still holds countless mysteries, and that sometimes the greatest enigmas lie hidden within the simplest materials. Brick, something we still use every day, became the key to understanding an entire civilization. And with Jetavanaramaya, that key has yet to be fully turned. At the highest peak of Ynys Mawr, where the Atlantic winds blow as if trying to erase every trace of time, Dun Eochla Fort stands silent in a vast open space. From afar, it appears to be nothing more than a simple stacked circular stone walls, so unassuming that a passerby might overlook it. but upon approaching this fortress reveals a peculiar mystery. No one knows who built it, no one is certain of its purpose, and most strikingly, there is no trace of habitation. A large structure positioned in the most strategic spot on the island, yet completely devoid of signs of life. This makes Dun Iokla a historical paradox, an unanswered question about how ancient people used space power belief and the layers of secrecy that millennia have not managed to unveil. If no one lived inside Dun Iokla, then what purpose was important enough to justify building such a massive structure on the island's highest peak? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Dun Iokla dates back more than 2,000 years and sits atop the island's highest hill with a panoramic view over 3 directions of the sea. From this vantage point, no movement offshore could have gone unnoticed. Celtic ring forts were typically places of residence livestock keeping and shelter for clan leaders. But Dun Iokla is unlike them: no hearth, no tools, no domestic refuse, no ashes, not a single piece of evidence suggesting long-term human occupation. This puzzles archaeologists if it wasn't lived in. Why did ancient people build such a structure in a high, difficult-to-access location that required immense labor and advanced technique only to not use it for daily life? Some believe it was a defensive stronghold, but this theory collapses due to the absence of any evidence of combat or fortification. There is no storage area, no fire pit, no enclosed space for animals during storms. While defensive forts usually show signs of repair from conflict, Dun Iokla is too clean, unnaturally clean. These are not the marks of a place that endured siege or shelter. There are no weapons, no broken spearheads or arrowheads. It is far too quiet, too serene to be a military installation. Another theory suggests it served as a lookout. But if observation was all it was meant for, why build 2 thick stone walls using perfectly interlocked dry stone masonry? A Celtic community could simply have built an earthen mound or wooden tower. Instead, they chose 2 solid stone rings, a task far from easy for a small prehistoric community. And while the view from here is undeniably vast, a typical lookout does not require the level of precision found at Dun Iokla. It is as if the function of this structure was not practical, but something deeper, more symbolic, more temporal. Within this context, the greatest mystery emerges: why does a structure with no evidence of habitation exist in the most important position on the island? What did ancient people use it for? When archaeology provides no answer, researchers turn toward other possibilities, those that belong not to daily life, but to the realms of ritual and symbolism. And this is where Dun Iokla becomes more fascinating than ever. Some researchers suggest that Dun Iokla may have been a site for seasonal rituals, moments when the sun, moon, or constellations reached specific positions in the sky. The hilltop location, with its unobstructed view, makes it ideal for observing celestial events. Ancient civilizations often tied rituals to cosmic movements, and prehistoric Ireland was no exception. If Dun Iokla functioned as a ritual observatory, it would not need signs of habitation. It would only need to be used during significant times of the year. In that case, the absence of traces becomes fitting evidence rather than contradiction. Another deeper hypothesis proposes that Dun Iokla marked the supreme authority of a clan leader. Building a large structure on the highest point without using it as a dwelling may have symbolized that the place belonged to the divine rather than to humans. Many ancient cultures believed that mountaintops connected heaven and earth. Thus, Dun Iokla could be a heaven-oriented symbol of power, not a residential space. The absence of human occupation would not be unusual, but integral to its symbolic purpose. The place would only be entered during rituals, moments believed to thin the boundary between the living world and the realm of spirits. Some researchers believe Dun Iokla is linked to a network of ancient forts on Innis Moor. forming deliberate alignments or triangles on the landscape. If these forts represented a ritual map, an ancient positioning system, or a celestial grid, then Donyokla at the highest point may have served as its center. In that framework, its purpose would not be habitation or defense, but rather the connection of energy points in ritual practice marking sacred communal space. This explains the lack of domestic evidence. It wasn't a place to live, but a place belonging to a higher force. Another intriguing possibility, Donyokla may have hosted gatherings of leaders, but only during special events. Such a place would not leave habitation evidence as it wasn't used daily. Tribal meetings, coming-of-age rituals, harvest ceremonies, or important judicial assemblies could all have taken place here. The absence of material objects does not negate its social function. Rather, it increases the likelihood that it was not inhabited but visited during key moments. Yet despite the many theories, none is strong enough to become the final answer. Donyokla remains silent. It left no writing, no strong folklore, no physical artifacts. All that remains is stone and wind. And sometimes silence itself reminds us that the past does not always want to be fully understood. Donyokla may have fulfilled its role in the ancient world, but we live in a different era with a different mindset. It is this distance that makes the fortress mysterious. It lacks traces, not only of habitation, but of meaning. Today, standing within Donyokla, one can still feel a strange emptiness. No footsteps, no fire, traces, no scent of life. Only stacked stones, sea wind, and an endless horizon. Some visitors say the fortress is too quiet, a kind of sacred stillness. Others say that standing inside the circular walls feels like being in the center of something greater than oneself, something that cannot be named. Perhaps the ancients felt the same, and perhaps that is why they built Donyokla to capture a moment of connection with something beyond human life. By archaeological standards, Donyokla is not the most complex or largest structure in Ireland, but its enigmatic function, especially the complete absence of habitation traces, makes it one of the most perplexing sights. A fortress without people, without story, without explanation. A structure standing in the vast landscape as if it does not belong to the living. Perhaps Donyokla was never meant to be a home, but a place where humans reach towards something greater than themselves. And until archaeology finds the answer, it will continue to stand an eternal question, a meaningful void, a mystery bound together by time and silence. Amid the quiet forests of central Sri Lanka, where sunlight struggles to pierce the dense canopy and reach the damp earth below the ancient Unexplained forest monastery, appears like a forgotten world. What seems at first to be untouched wilderness reveals upon closer approach precisely carved stone blocks, impossibly flat foundations, and ancient architectural remnants that immediately provoke a question. How did people of the past, living in such an isolated region, create a structure so refined and enduring? Kudawella is not an ordinary forest monastery. It is a religious, meditative and stone-built complex more than 1,000 years old, possessing features far beyond the technical abilities historically attributed to its era. Stone blocks are cut to fit perfectly stacked or joined without mortar-forming platforms, foundations, boundary walls, and water channels, all of which stand as evidence of a long-lost technique whose methods remain a mystery to modern archaeologists. Do you think the builders of Waqra Pukara possessed a forgotten stoneworking technique, or is there another explanation behind this precision? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Upon entering the forest, the first striking impression is the overwhelming silence. There is no noise from towns, no signs of habitation, only the rustling wind and moss-covered stones seemingly guarding a secret too immense to tell. Scattered among the trees, the stone ruins display an astonishing level of technological sophistication. Steps are carved directly into bedrock so flat they seem polished by modern machines. Horizontal stone slabs possess unnaturally smooth surfaces, showing no warping or erosion despite centuries of tropical rain. Deeper within the forest, the large architectural platforms raise even more questions: with what tools and by what methods did ancient builders transform massive boulders into such flawless plains? According to what we know, they possessed only rudimentary iron tools, entirely inadequate to create the level of precision seen at Gareja Lavra. One of the most extraordinary features is the network of stone channels running across the foundation of the monastery. Although many structures have been destroyed over time, the channels reveal a coherent technical logic. They directed water from higher elevations into natural reservoirs, dividing into smaller branches before joining into a larger flow. Strangely, the depth and width of these channels remain almost completely uniform, even as they traverse different types of terrain. Achieving such uniformity would require a level of precision comparable to modern surveying tools. Yet Sri Lankan archaeologists acknowledge that no historical records or evidence suggest the ancient builders possessed such technology. The perfection of these channels remains an unsolved mystery. During excavations, researchers discovered enormous stone slabs, polished to a high sheen, positioned as foundations with unbelievable accuracy. Some slabs fit together so perfectly that no gaps remain, resembling the Cyclopean stonework found in ancient civilizations across the world. And yet Gareja Lavra shows no evidence of hardened metal hammers or advanced grinding tools. What technique allowed ancient builders to produce such flat surfaces and nearly perfect right angles? Some theories speculate they might have used heat and water to fracture stone or employed abrasive materials that have since disappeared. But all of these remain speculative. None fully explain the archaeological evidence. Deeper in the forest, expansive ruins continue to unfold. Walls, floors, steps, and pathways all display the same technique: precise stone cutting anomalously smooth surfaces and structures that remain stable despite the absence of binding materials. This indicates that the builders deeply understood the nature of each type of stone, how to orient slabs to distribute weight, and how stone responds to climate. More importantly, the polished surfaces reveal techniques that modern scholars still cannot replicate using the tools available at that time. Some slabs show cuts that are unnervingly straight, resembling the effect of a blade far sharper than iron. Many archaeologists confess they do not know how ancient builders achieved such results with their limited technologies. The stone altars that once held Buddha statues also exhibit astonishing refinement. Many still retain sharply defined edges and perfectly balanced proportions, showing no signs of warping. Measurements taken with modern instruments reveal that some of these edges deviate by almost zero, something impossible to replicate with simple hand tools. Even more perplexing, certain stone surfaces are so flat that rainwater spreads across them like it would on a pane of glass, rather than forming natural runoff patterns. This suggests that ancient builders not only carved stone by hand, but also used a sophisticated polishing method, perhaps involving multiple stages of treatment that modern scholars have yet to reconstruct. Further adding to the intrigue is the deliberate geometric layout of the complex. The spacing between platforms, the orientation of stones, and the overall arrangement all suggest a carefully calculated design, not random construction. This implies the builders possessed extensive knowledge of geometry and structural dynamics, enabling them to plan architecture according to standards not mentioned in surviving historical writings. This absence of documentation strengthens the belief that Gareja Lavra represents a special architectural tradition, one that may have disappeared entirely. Some stones bear weathered carvings that conceal yet another mystery. Certain cuts are unnervingly consistent in depth, indicating not only strength, but a perfectly steady force, something nearly impossible to achieve by hand. Several blocks appear unfinished, as if a worker abruptly disappeared mid-task, leaving behind sharp, untouched cut lines. Such unfinished works often provide archaeological insight into construction methods, yet in Gareja Lavra, they create more questions. The cuts are too uniform, the depths too identical, and there is no sign of hammering or chipping. These anomalies reinforce the hypothesis that the builders used an advanced but now lost technique for shaping stone. The black water pool, after which Gareja Lavra is named, must also be mentioned. Although not directly related to stone-cutting techniques, the pool is intricately tied to the monastery's architecture. Its banks are reinforced with precisely cut, square stones arranged perfectly along the natural curve of the terrain. Some stones are astonishingly large, taller than an adult, weighing several tons, yet placed with such accuracy that they have not tilted after centuries. This reveals the builders understood load-bearing distribution, optimal placement, and interlocking techniques that guarantee stability. Even more puzzling, the pool almost never runs dry, leading many to believe that the surrounding stone channels formed part of a forgotten hydraulic system. If true, their knowledge of water engineering far exceeded previous assumptions. Today, walking through the forest and seeing these ruins, one feels as though standing before the remnants of a silent technology unshowy, yet extraordinary in its own way. Gareja Lavra is neither massive nor grand, yet it is refined to an unbelievable degree, preserved with a precision that astonishes modern researchers. The mystery of this place lies not in its scale, but in its uncanny exactness, as if it belonged to a different technological era. Perhaps the forest's silence has protected these secrets. The techniques once used to cut, polish, and position the massive stones seem to have vanished from history. No one knows why a forest monastery required such technical perfection or who the builders truly were. Only the stones remain standing through time, a silent challenge, reminding us that even with modern technology, we may still struggle to recreate what ancient hands once achieved. Hidden on the arid highlands of Soria in central western Spain, Tiermes rock-cut city is not an ordinary ruin. It is a city carved directly into the mountain, quietly challenging everything. Modern archaeology believes it knows about ancient engineering. Unlike traditional architecture built from stacked stone or brick, Tiermes emerges as a labyrinth of stone gates, corridors, deep niches, massive staircases, underground chambers, and rock surfaces cut so sharply that they seem almost impossible. After thousands of years of wind and sand erosion, the site still retains its original mystery. Who created these flawless cuts? Why did they choose to carve an entire city into the mountain rather than build on the surface? And most importantly, what technology did they use? Although the Celtiberians and later the Romans occupied this region, many parts of Tiermes do not fully align with any known architectural style of either culture. Numerous structures are too refined, too complex, and too precise to be easily attributed to the indigenous technology of 2,000 years ago. Among all the mysteries of Tiermes, the most astonishing and acknowledged by archaeologists as a phenomenon not easily explained is its massive hydraulic system, engineered with near-modern precision, carved directly into the red sandstone cliffs. Why would an ancient city in such a dry environment invest in such an advanced water system? And how did they achieve a level of technical accuracy that even iron tools of the time would struggle to produce? Could an ancient society truly engineer such a precise hydraulic system with the tools we believe they had, or is Tiermes hiding knowledge we've yet to understand? Share your thoughts in the comments below. When studying Tiermes, archaeologists have always paid special attention to the network of water channels, underground conduits, stone pipes, and reservoirs carved throughout the entire mountainside. What astonishes everyone is not merely the scale, but the extraordinary technical precision. Many channels stretch for dozens of meters, with gradient differences of only a few centimeters, just enough for water to flow steadily without causing erosion. This level of refinement is almost equivalent to the standards of a modern hydraulic engineering, and it hardly aligns with the common idea of an ancient Celtiberian community equipped only with primitive tools. Some rock-cut channels maintain an almost perfectly uniform width from beginning to end, while their interior surfaces are carved so smoothly that they evoke the impression of mechanical grinding. The squared, straight, razor-sharp cuts have led experts to debate for years whether ancient people could truly have achieved such results using only stone hammers and rudimentary iron tools. Many channels are so deep and narrow that even a deviation of a few degrees would render the entire system ineffective, yet each groove appears programmed with near-perfect accuracy. This hydraulic system extends far beyond simple water channels, forming a complex network that includes reservoirs carved deep into the rock and positioned strategically to collect rainwater and groundwater. Pressure-regulating basins designed to slow the flow of water, subtly branching lateral channels that distribute water to residential, ceremonial, and agricultural areas, and long tube-like conduits carved through solid stone but showing almost no identifiable tool marks. Some channels were even carved in curved shapes to reduce pressure as water moved downhill, a hydraulic principle still applied in modern urban engineering. The strangest part is that no ancient document describes how the Celtiberians or Romans designed this system. All that remains are the immaculate cuts scattered across the rocky slopes like remnants of a vanished knowledge. When research teams attempted to simulate the system's water flow, the results revealed an astonishing level of optimization. The design effectively managed the scarce water supply of the semi-arid region and distributed it intelligently for both daily use and ritual activities. This indicates that the builders possessed a deep understanding of the terrain groundwater levels, seasonal rainfall patterns and evaporation rates, insight consistent with advanced hydraulic engineering, yet recorded nowhere in history. What perplexes archaeologists most is the measurement precision involved. Deep, perfectly straight cuts, smooth planes, and channels maintaining stable gradients over long distances all require sophisticated elevation surveying skills, even though the Celtiberians are believed to have had nothing more than ropes, wooden stakes, and simple tools. So what instruments did they actually use? How did they make such calculations without metal tools hard enough to create such precise cuts? No one has been able to provide a definitive explanation. The next major question concerns the degree to which the system once functioned, for even today archaeologists cannot fully reconstruct the complete layout of the hydraulic network. Some channels lead deep into expanded stone chambers, but what was their purpose? Cooling, long-term water storage, ritual activities that we no longer understand. The silence of the ruins renders every hypothesis fragile, and the hydraulic system of Tiermes continues to exist as an unsolved mystery of the ancient world. Walking into Tiermes, one quickly realizes that the entire city was planned with remarkable detail. Massive staircases connect elevated ceremonial platforms, while deep-cut passageways carve through the mountainside. Yet the architectural style does not fully resemble Roman work, nor is it purely Celtiberian. Many scholars now theorize that certain portions of Tiermes may be far older than the commonly accepted timeline, with the Romans merely reusing what was already there. Some chambers are unusually sized, far too large or too small for typical living spaces, yet executed with meticulous craftsmanship, implying important functions now lost to history. Other rooms contain narrow vents or openings carved with mechanical straightness, as if their builders possessed engineering supervision, far above what is expected of Bronze or Iron Age tribes. There is also speculation that Tiermes may once have been linked to astronomical rituals. Certain stone shafts and corridors align with sunlight during solstices or equinoxes. If true Tiermes may not have been just a settlement, but also an ancient observatory. One of the most debated mysteries is the presence of perfect cuts throughout Tiermes. Many rock surfaces are so smooth they reflect light, like polished stone. Some right angles and diagonal lines are so straight that they seem impossible to carve by hand into hard sandstone. Traditional archaeology suggests these cuts came from decades or centuries of painstaking manual labor. Yet some independent researchers argue that the deep, clean, consistent cuts appear beyond what soft ancient metals could realistically achieve. Even if Roman tools were involved, creating long, narrow, even channels in red sandstone would still be extremely challenging using handheld tools alone. While no evidence confirms the existence of lost advanced technology, Tiermes forces historians to confront a difficult question. How did ancient builders achieve a level of precision far exceeding the known average of their era? Perhaps the final mystery is this: Tiermes shows no clear sign of collapse. There is no evidence of large-scale warfare, no major natural disaster, and no organized destruction. The city seems to have simply been abandoned. The stone structures still stand defying time, yet the people who inhabited them and who once operated the sophisticated hydraulic system vanished entirely. No written records remain, no diagrams describing the water system, no documentation of the city's structure. All that exists today are the cuts, the channels, and the silent stone chambers, as if an advanced engineering tradition once flourished here, only to be erased without a trace. Tiermes' rock-cut city is mysterious not merely because of its architecture, but because of its hydraulic system, a construction so refined that it borders on being out of its time, operating on principles we only fully understood in modern centuries. Is it evidence of technical mastery unrecorded by history, or the remnants of a civilization whose knowledge disappeared? Tiermes still stands on its barren plateau, offering a deeper enigma than almost any ancient ruin in Spain. How could ancient people create such an elegant hydraulic system, using only the tools they were believed to possess? And more importantly, why did they do it? In a place where the clouds seem to brush against the sheer rock faces of the Western Ghats, a strange structure emerges as if challenging every human assumption. Across the majestic Western Ghats of India, where rocky peaks rise like colossal pillars toward the sky, there exists a structure that makes anyone who glimpses it wonder how could ancient people possibly have created such a thing? This is the Kalavantin Durg rock steps, a vertical stone pathway twisting along a nearly perpendicular cliff without handrails, without protective walls, consisting only of steps carved directly into the mountainside. For many travelers, it is a test of endurance. But for archaeologists and engineers, it is an unsolved enigma. Having existed for centuries without blueprints and with no clear historical record, Kalavantin Durg feels like a fragment of reality that exceeds the technological capacity of the ancient world, overwhelming anyone who looks at it with its sheer impossibility. What do you think allowed ancient people to create a staircase that seems almost impossible? Share your thoughts in the comments below. What makes Kalavantin Durg famous is not just its grandeur or the danger of its sky-hanging steps, but the illogical feeling embedded in every construction detail. The steps are cut straight into the rock, following a winding path along the mountainside so consistent that it is hard to believe they were made with primitive tools. The slope is almost vertical, in places reaching up to 90 degrees, and the rock surface is extremely hard. Yet the steps are sharp-aligned and carved to just the right depth for a secure foothold, as if a modern engineer had measured each millimeter. How could ancient builders position themselves to carve such steps? What kind of scaffolding did they use, if any? No one has been able to explain it. Ancient construction techniques in the region typically relied on softer materials and accessible terrain. But Kalavantin Durg is perched on an isolated mountain top, difficult to reach, surrounded by deep valleys and fierce winds. Yet ancient builders chose this exact spot to carve a staircase instead of finding an easier route. Even stranger, all the steps seem to follow a consistent rule, uniform height, width, and curvature, as if based on a precise architectural blueprint. There is no sign of experimentation, no evidence of sections being demolished or repaired. Everything is seamless, as though crafted in a single uninterrupted effort. What makes researchers consider this structure illogical is that constructing it under ancient conditions seems nearly impossible. First is the matter of safety. To carve steps nearly 700 meters above ground, workers would have had to stand in positions with almost no foothold on extremely hard and slippery stone. Rain, fog, and strong winds year-round would have made the task even more dangerous. Maintaining precision would require stabilizing their bodies, their tools, and measuring the steps accurately, yet no documents or auxiliary structures remain to indicate any support system ever existed. Some suggest that ancient builders used bamboo ladders or wooden scaffolding along the mountainside. But with slopes nearly vertical, such scaffolding would be virtually impossible. Strong winds would blow it away, especially at such heights. And if scaffolding had been used, there should be drill holes or anchor marks, but Kalavantin Durg shows none. All surfaces are smooth and uninterrupted, as if the steps materialized through a method requiring no scaffolding at all. Another hypothesis claims that workers carved the stone from the top down, standing at the summit and gradually descending. But when engineers attempt to model this method, it also proves unreasonable. To carve from above, workers would need to suspend themselves with ropes or similar materials, yet ancient ropes lacked the strength to support both human weight and the force of hammering stone. Moreover, carving from above would not allow precise alignment of the steps. A slight miscalculation would distort the entire staircase, but Kalavantin Durg shows no such irregularities. Another detail that highlights the illogical nature of the site is the durability of the steps. Despite centuries of erosion, the steps remain well preserved. There are no signs of major collapse or deformation. This indicates that the builders chose the correct orientation of the rock, the correct structural axis, and the correct load-bearing points. But calculating factors like compressive strength, optimal cutting angle, and drainage direction requires knowledge far beyond what most contemporary structures display. Why does this particular construction surpass the technological level of its time? From a distance, Kalavantin Durg looks like a natural staircase, deepening the mystery even further. If humans built it, their ability to harmonize the structure with the terrain was nearly perfect. But if it was partly natural, how did they manipulate nature to produce steps of such uniformity? There are no fractures, no water-carved distortions, no mineral intrusions interrupting the pattern. Everything flows seamlessly, as though the original rock was waiting to be shaped. Local legends claim the staircase was built to honor a queen named Kalavantin, though it is unclear whether she ever existed. If the purpose was ceremonial or commemorative, why build something so dangerous and labor-intensive? And if it was a military lookout point, why is there no evidence of fortifications, walls, or shelters? All clues point to a paradox. The structure is too precise to be purely ritualistic, yet lacks the features expected of a functional fortress. Trekkers often recount that near the top, the weather can shift abruptly. Dense fog can roll in within minutes, obscuring the staircase and making the place feel like a gateway to another world. Such phenomena likely contribute to the site's mystique. More importantly, the summit experiences peculiar wind patterns and low-lying clouds that defy normal weather models. Some believe this location was chosen not only for strategic visibility, but possibly for spiritual or astronomical reasons. Despite numerous theories, the Kalavantin Durg rock steps still lack definitive answers. Who built them? For what purpose? And most importantly, how? The absolute silence of historical records, paired with a structure that has stood unchanged under open sky, without repairs, makes it a challenge thrown at the modern world. It forces us to reconsider the abilities of ancient people and question whether we have underestimated them. If these illogical steps were indeed carved with primitive tools, then ancient builders possessed technological skills far beyond what our history books describe. Today, Kalavantin Durg is not only a famous trekking destination, but also a symbol of unresolved ancient mysteries. Anyone standing at its base senses something of a feeling that the structure defies ordinary logic. And for that reason, it continues to attract the curious, the researchers, and the lovers of history, all searching for answers to the seemingly simple question, how did ancient people create the Kalavantin Durg rock steps? A question no one has answered, and one that may puzzle humanity for many generations to come. On Elephantine Island, amidst the deep blue waters of the Nile that have quietly flowed for millennia, stands a modest structure that holds an almost unimaginable level of importance. This is the Elephantine Nilometer, an ancient water-measuring device so small that many visitors might walk past without noticing. Yet it remains one of Egypt's most mysterious constructions due to its extraordinary precision, its endurance through time, and the countless layers of secrets hidden beneath the stone steps descending into darkness. If the pyramids symbolize the power of the pharaohs, then the Nilometer symbolizes knowledge, the very knowledge the ancient Egyptians used to intertwine astronomy, economics, religion, and the survival of their civilization. What is astonishing is that they accomplished all of this in darkness, within a narrow, damp, slippery space where sunlight rarely touched, and yet the result reached a level of accuracy that even modern technology must reconsider. Why do you think the ancient Egyptians were able to create such an unbelievably precise structure like the Nilometer, even though they worked in almost complete darkness? Share your thoughts in the comments below. The Elephantine Nilometer looks simple, a long staircase carved deep into the earth, descending to the level of the Nile. On both walls are carved water-level markings, a measuring system that appears crude at first glance, but on closer examination reveals itself to be a complete agricultural economic forecasting machine. The ancient Egyptians relied on the readings in the Nilometer to determine whether the year would bring drought or severe flooding, and from that forecast, they calculated taxes, organized agriculture, prepared food supplies, and even performed rituals to interpret the message of the god Hapi. But the greatest wonder lies in this question: how could they build such a perfect structure in a completely unfavorable environment with primitive tools and near total darkness? The steps of the Nilometer were carved directly into the rock, creating a pathway leading deep toward the riverbed, where water would rise and fall with the annual flood. Yet what truly puzzles archaeologists is the absolute accuracy of the measurement marks. The lines are not only perfectly straight, but also maintain evenly spaced intervals, calibrated precisely to the ancient measuring system. Even after more than 2,000 years of erosion by the Nile, the carved marks remain clear, proving an astonishing level of craftsmanship. The ancient Egyptians didn't simply create a water shaft, they engineered a scientific instrument designed to operate continuously through thousands of flood cycles, and it remains accurate to this day. Here lies the paradox. The Nilometer staircase exists in near total darkness, Today, anyone entering must use lamps or torches, stepping carefully to avoid slipping. Yet more than 2 millennia ago, stoneworkers carved each step, each mark, each inscription in this confined, lightless environment, without electricity, without laser measuring devices, without modern alignment tools. They had only torches, rudimentary measuring sticks, and eyes accustomed to darkness, and still they produced a structure so precise that modern engineers admit this level of accuracy cannot be fully explained by the techniques of that era. To grasp the strangeness of this, imagine descending into a deep, slick, dark shaft and using stone tools to carve perfectly vertical lines along both walls, maintaining flawless alignment over more than 10 meters. Any slight deviation would render the entire measurement system inaccurate, potentially leading to agricultural catastrophe for all of Egypt. And yet they made no mistakes. Not only that, but the slope of the steps, the spacing between them, and the total depth of the shaft were all calculated to match the Nile's flood cycles, water level fluctuations, and seasonal flow. The precision is so high that modern researchers compare Nilometer readings with current hydrological data and are astonished to find that it still functions exactly as originally designed. Many archaeologists believe the Egyptians used a mysterious measuring technique far beyond what we currently attribute to their technology. Some propose that they observed reflected light from the water's surface to create light reference points within the darkness. Others suggest they possessed advanced geological and hydrological knowledge that allowed them to predict the optimal location and alignment. There are even theories about a lost form of special plumb line or alignment tool used to keep all the carvings perfectly vertical. Yet to this day, no definitive evidence has been found explaining exactly how they achieved this. But the mystery of the Elephantine Nilometer extends beyond engineering. It also carries deep religious meaning. To the Egyptians, the Nile was not merely a source of life, it was the will of the gods. Each year when the water rose, it was believed to be a blessing or warning from the god Hapi. Thus, the Nilometer was also a place where priests read the language of the gods. When the water rose higher or lower than expected, they recorded it, compared it to past cycles, and interpreted its spiritual significance. The blending of science, hydrology, astronomy, and spirituality created a dual-natured monument, both a measuring instrument and an altar for deciphering divine intention. What is equally astonishing is that the Nilometer has survived thousands of severe floods. The Nile is famous for its erosive power, yet the stone steps of the Elephantine Nilometer remain standing, not collapsed, not swept away, and not eroded to the point of losing the carved markings. This raises compelling questions. What type of stone did the Egyptians use? What reinforcement techniques? Why does it remain intact while many other structures from the same era have degraded? Geological studies show that the rock here has a distinctive structure, though not particularly rare. This deepens the mystery. What construction method enabled it to endure millennia? The inscriptions carved into the walls add yet another layer of intrigue. Some are written in hieratic and demotic scripts, but portions remain untranslated even today. Some scholars believe these inscriptions describe water cycles, while others see references to political events, dynastic shifts, or astronomical phenomena. This transforms the Nilometer into more than a tool. It becomes an encrypted historical record, a kind of message left for the future, though the key to decipher it has been lost. Viewed as a whole, the Elephantine Nilometer is a perfect fusion of architecture, science, religion, and political authority. It allowed priests and pharaohs to control the nation. By reading the water-high water levels meant lower taxes and abundant harvests. Low water levels warned of drought and scarcity. Thus, the Nilometer functioned as the economic brain of ancient Egypt, a place where the fate of millions was determined. Yet among all the mysteries surrounding the Elephantine Nilometer, the question that continues to trouble archaeologists the most is this: how did the ancient Egyptians construct such an incredibly precise monument in near total darkness, using only stone tools while achieving a technical standard that even modern engineers marvel at? To this day, no one has provided a completely satisfying answer. Perhaps the Nilometer stands as evidence that the Egyptian civilization possessed knowledge far beyond what we assume knowledge, not buried in sand, but hidden beneath the waters of the Nile, where darkness and the eternal current safeguard a story that time cannot erase. Amid the semi-arid landscapes of northeastern Brazil, where red sandstone formations have been carved by wind and time into towering cliffs, winding valleys, and deep ravines, the Serra da Capivara rock shelters emerge like a gateway into a distant past, a past that modern science has yet to fully grasp. Inside hundreds of rock shelters and small caves scattered across this vast region, ancient paintings cover the walls, revealing something astonishing. Humans not only appeared in this land far earlier than expected, but they also possessed an artistic skill and a pigment preservation technique far beyond what is typically attributed to prehistoric hunter-gatherers. To archaeologists, the clear brushstrokes, the deep reddish-brown pigments that look almost freshly applied just centuries ago rather than tens of millennia, stand as undeniable evidence of something extraordinary. And it is precisely this unbelievable durability of color that has become the central mystery of one of the most significant archaeological puzzles in the Americas. Among the countless paintings at Serra da Capivara, from hunting scenes, festivals, and ritual ceremonies to daily life activities, the most shocking feature is not the sheer quantity or thematic diversity, but the endurance of the pigments themselves, defying time in a way unprecedented in prehistoric rock art. Dating samples from surrounding sediments and ancient fire remains suggest that humans may have appeared here as early as 25,000, 30,000, or even 40 to 50,000 years ago. Whatever the final confirmed timeline may be, one fact remains clear: the art of Serra da Capivara has survived harsh climates, drastic environmental changes, and entire glacial cycles, yet still appears astonishingly vivid today. What do you think allowed the ancient pigments at Serra da Capivara to survive for tens of thousands of years? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Closer examination revealed that the mystery lies not only in the age of these paintings, but in the very physical nature of the pigment layers. Analyses show that the prehistoric inhabitants used iron oxide, manganese charcoal, and natural minerals materials common in ancient rock art globally. However, what sets Serra da Capivara apart is the unknown binding agent they used. Unlike most cave art that fades easily over time, the pigments here adhere so tightly to the stone that they seem fused with the mineral structure itself. Under the microscope, many samples show pigments penetrating micro-fissures in the rock rather than simply coating the surface. This suggests that the ancient artists may have used a pigment processing technique, possibly involving heat or some chemical action that modern science still cannot fully reconstruct. Some scholars theorize the use of tree resin, animal fat, blood, or fermented organic compounds as a natural binder. Yet no analysis to date has provided definitive identification of this mysterious adhesive. The term technology ahead of its time, often used metaphorically to describe ancient stone monuments elsewhere in the world, becomes literal at Serra da Capivara, where the pigments themselves are a physical phenomenon that challenges modern material science. These paintings not only display exceptional durability, but also reveal a remarkable level of aesthetic sophistication for a prehistoric hunter-gatherer society. Groups of human figures are arranged with clear compositional intent. Several scenes depict movement, using repeated body positions, creating a rhythm akin to primitive animation. Some artworks portray detailed communal rituals with dozens of figures, forming circular arrangements, arms raised, heads tilted in unison, as though the artist sought to capture a sacred moment. Red pigments, the most dominant hue, were often used to emphasize important actions or central characters. This indicates that the art of Serra da Capivara was not merely decorative, but a complex symbolic language, a medium for transmitting memory belief and collective narratives across generations. Yet the question remains, how did these prehistoric artists access, process, and apply pigments with such extraordinary longevity? Although many theories remain unconfirmed, a widely shared view among researchers suggests that the ancient people must have possessed deep knowledge of local mineral sources, pigment preparation, and the interactions between color and the region's sandstone surfaces. What is even more astonishing is the dense distribution of paintings. Not just one or two caves contain rock art, hundreds of shelters across a vast area are decorated. This suggests that the region once served as a cultural spiritual center for a large community where rituals, beliefs, and artistic expression were deeply intertwined. Yet the paradox of Serra da Capivara lies in what is missing. Aside from the paintings, there is virtually no material evidence of a large advanced culture. No stone buildings, no complex architecture, no refined pottery, no metal tools. A society that invested immense time and effort into producing an enormous artistic legacy seemingly vanished from history without leaving behind any other trace. This absence of material culture perplexes researchers even more. Was this a society that developed spiritually and symbolically rather than materially, or did some event erase nearly all physical evidence except for the pigments that the stone could preserve? These questions remain unanswered. Fire pits and ash deposits dating between 30 and 40,000 years show that humans inhabited these shelters for long periods. This strengthens the argument that the region was once a major settlement center. The unexpectedly ancient dates have prompted many scholars to reconsider the origins of humans in the Americas. Did they truly arrive from Asia via the Bering Land Bridge, as traditional models claim, or did the earliest groups reach South America through coastal routes or even across oceans from distant lands? Some of the paintings bear stylistic similarities to African rock art, raising the hypothesis of transcontinental cultural connections in deep prehistory. Though unproven, these artistic parallels remain an intriguing question that researchers cannot ignore. And yet, at the heart of Serra da Capivara lies the pigments themselves, surviving tens of millennia without fading. Whoever these ancient people were, whatever they did, however they vanished, their pigment-making technique alone is enough to reshape our understanding of prehistoric human capabilities. The deeper researchers investigate, the more they realize that these ancient artists were not merely depicting their world, they were sending messages through time, showing us that human ingenuity in any era can reach heights far beyond what history assumes. And today, over the dry heat of northeastern Brazil, one question still hangs unanswered, challenging archaeology, materials science, and human history alike. How did the ancient artists of Serra da Capivara create pigments that could endure for tens of thousands of years without fading? Across the dry coastal desert of northern Peru, near the city of Trujillo, the El Brujo complex rises from the sand like a vivid remnant of the once brilliant Moqui civilization. From a distance, the adobe pyramids look like simple mounds eroded by time. But up close, they carry an eerie sense of presence, as if they are silently observing those who approach. Cracked walls, collapsed corridors, and reliefs emerging from beneath layers of earth reveal that this place does not entirely belong to the past. It feels suspended between decay and endurance, both deteriorating and defying time. The atmosphere grows even more mysterious near the central pyramid. Wind carrying dust and sea salt brushes across surfaces that once witnessed ancient rituals and displays of power. Each exposed wall seems to whisper fragments of stories the desert tried to bury, but never managed to erase. At the core of this vast ceremonial landscape stands Huacatao Viejo, the architectural and spiritual nucleus of El Brujo. Constructed from millions of hand-formed adobe bricks, the pyramid was built in successive phases, each generation adding a new layer over the previous one, entombing older murals and carvings within its expanding mass. This technique created a stratified archive of moche art and ritual practice sealed like chapters of a book, intentionally closed by its authors. The walls uncovered by archaeologists reveal scenes of warriors marching in procession, priests adorned with elaborate regalia-bound captives awaiting ritual sacrifice, and hybrid beings, part human, part mythic. Their poses, expressions, and compositions carry a narrative that is both violent and ceremonial, reflecting a worldview that intertwined warfare, agriculture, cosmology, and the authority of priest-kings. Yet despite their narrative power, it is the colors vivid, improbable, and almost disturbingly alive that transform these reliefs from ancient art into something far more enigmatic. The pigments at El Brujo stand among the most baffling achievements of the ancient world. The reds appear as though they have been freshly applied, glowing with a saturation that belies their age. Deep yellows spread across the plaster like sunlight trapped beneath the surface. Blues, often rare and precious in ancient art, retain a boldness reminiscent of polished stone or newly glazed pottery. Even the faintest whites, shaded by time, maintain a silky, luminous quality. What makes these colors extraordinary is not only their beauty, but their sheer defiance of natural decay. The El Brujo complex is exposed year-round to violent winds, solar radiation, and the corrosive salts carried inland from the Pacific. Under such conditions, organic binders should break down rapidly, and mineral pigments should erode, fade, or peel away. And yet, the murals remain astonishingly intact. Numerous reliefs seem dull and washed out at the moment of excavation, but once exposed to air and light, the pigments intensified as if reawakened by their release from centuries of darkness. This phenomenon, termed by archaeologists as color blooming, is not fully understood, and no equivalent has been documented at other moche sites with the same consistency. The scientific investigations conducted thus far have led only to more questions. Mineral powders, such as hematite, limonite, and azurite, may explain the basic hues, but they do not account for the pigment's longevity or unusual reactivity to light. Organic binders derived from plants, resins, or oils appear in some samples, yet the specific compounds have degraded beyond precise identification. Some researchers propose that the mochi used a type of crystalline mineral capable of refracting or diffusing light, giving the impression of renewed color. Others speculate that the pigments underwent a form of chemical stabilization during the painting process, perhaps through repeated heating, mixing with seawater, or ritual exposure to smoke or incense. Another hypothesis points to the unique microclimate of the Peruvian desert. With nearly zero humidity and minimal rainfall, the environment naturally inhibits fungal and bacterial growth factors that usually degrade murals. However, this explanation falls short when considering that other mochi sites in the same region do not preserve color with the same intensity. Something exceptional occurred at El Brujo, something that allowed its pigments not only to survive, but in some cases, to revive themselves. This anomaly has led many scholars to explore the possibility that pigment production at El Brujo had a strong ritual dimension. If colors were not merely aesthetic, but sacred substances, their method of creation may have been controlled by priestly specialists. Red, associated with blood and vitality, could have been used to invoke life force during sacrificial ceremonies. Blue, connected to the sea and sky, may have symbolized the realm of gods who governed fertility and weather. Yellow, glowing like the sun, likely represented divine authority and cosmic order. Imagine pigments prepared not in ordinary workshops, but in sacred enclosures where fire, seawater, incense, and the chants of priests played roles in transforming raw minerals into ritual compounds. If such processes included symbolic offerings, blood ashes, or rare botanical extracts, the resulting pigments might have acquired properties that modern science struggles to quantify. In this interpretation, the color's endurance is not merely technical, but spiritual, a byproduct of ceremonies whose original meaning has been lost to time. The discovery of the Lady of Shao provides astonishing evidence of the Mochi's pigment mastery. Buried within a richly appointed tomb, her naturally preserved body still displays tattoos of serpent's rays and celestial symbols. The pigments embedded in her skin have endured for more than 1,500 years, resisting decomposition, despite the biological fragility of tattooed flesh. This suggests that the same pigment technologies used on temple walls may have been applied to the human body during rites of initiation, healing, or authority. The permanence of her tattoos reinforces the idea that these pigments carried symbolic power, binding the individual to divine or supernatural forces in a way that demanded reliability and longevity. The sacrificial evidence found throughout El Brujo invites yet another hypothesis that pigments may have incorporated human blood or other organic substances extracted during ceremonies. Bones bearing cut marks, ceremonial knives showing wear consistent with ritual killing, and adobe floors stained with what appears to be ancient blood all point to a cultic environment steeped in bodily symbolism. If pigments were mixed with blood, perhaps believed to grant vitality or spiritual potency, they may have formed compounds with unusual chemical resilience. While this concept remains highly speculative and ethically complex, it reflects the intertwined nature of ritual art and belief within Mochi society. Local oral traditions have long imbued El Brujo with supernatural associations. Stories circulate of lights drifting above the ruins at night, disembodied voices echoing through empty chambers, and sensations of being watched or followed among the excavators who have worked there. Though no scientific study has validated these accounts, they contribute to the site's reputation as a place where the past exerts a palpable presence. The name El Brujo, meaning the sorcerer, captures this aura perfectly. The complex feels like a landscape charged with forces that hover at the edge of perception, neither fully explainable nor entirely dismissible. Today, the El Brujo complex is far more than an archaeological site. It is a doorway into a realm of lost knowledge. The unfading pigments on its walls seem to narrate the story of a civilization that understood color in ways modern science has yet to grasp. This ancient society left behind not only pyramids of adobe, but also a profound, unresolved question. How did their pigments survive more than 16 centuries without losing their brilliance? What do you think? Did the Moche possess some kind of secret technique that allowed their pigments to survive for more than 16 centuries? Or is there still something we haven't uncovered yet? Share your thoughts in the comments below. In the scorching lands of ancient Nubia, where the Sudanese desert stretches endlessly toward the horizon and the Nile River cuts through as a lifeline nourishing countless generations, there stands a structure that raises far more questions than answers: Kerma Western Deffufa. From a distance, this massive monument appears like a single colossal block, rising straight from the earth. But upon approaching it, one realizes it was built entirely from mud brick, a material considered fragile, temporary, and incapable of surviving more than 4,000 years under harsh desert conditions. Yet Western Deffufa endures as a challenge to time, to sandstorms, and to the destructive forces of nature and humanity alike. Its walls are so thick that they seem almost alien to their era, concealing within them architectural, religious, and cultural mysteries that astonish researchers. But among all its peculiarities, the most perplexing to archaeologists are the traces of ancient pigments, colors so persistent that they seem impossible to explain, using any known Bronze Age techniques. What do you think allowed the Kerma Western Deffufa to survive and even preserve its colors for more than 4,000 years? Share your thoughts in the comments below. When archaeologists first excavated deeper sections of the Western Deffufa, they expected to find plain mud brick likely eroded down to its core. But what they uncovered was entirely different patches of blue-red ochre-yellow earth and manganese black, still clinging to the walls despite being buried beneath hot sand for millennia, subjected to extreme temperature swings between day and night and exposed to the arid climate of Sudan. Strangely, these pigments were not just still present, they appeared remarkably stable, as if preserved by some technique far beyond the known pigment technology of the Bronze Age. Many mineral analysts propose that ancient Kerma artisans used rare natural minerals blended with a mysterious organic binder that allowed the colors to penetrate deep into the wall surface, becoming part of the structure itself. Yet modern attempts to recreate this method have failed, leaving the central question unanswered: how could these pigments remain so extraordinarily durable? This has led to a controversial theory. The Kerma people may have possessed pigment-making skills far more sophisticated than anyone imagined, comparable to or even surpassing certain major civilizations of their time. This is especially shocking because traditional history often portrays Nubia as merely a peripheral region under Egyptian influence. But Western Deffufa, with its unfaded walls, completely overturns that narrative. It stands not only as a monumental mud brick construction, but also as a symbol of prosperity, craftsmanship, and extraordinary aesthetic sensibilities. These pigments likely served ritual purposes and reflected sacred authority tied to Kerma's elite, who built an entire city around the Deffufa as its spiritual and political core. Upon entering the Western Deffufa, its mysteries deepen further. Long, winding corridors, shaped like a maze, seem intentionally designed to control how sunlight enters each room. Many chambers contain unusually durable pigments, suggesting they were once used for ceremonies or to receive individuals of high status. Some walls contain traces of multiple layers of decoration, proving the monument was renovated numerous times, each phase using similar pigments, but with subtle variations. This leads many archaeologists to believe that a secret tradition of pigment making once existed, passed down through generations, before being lost with the decline of the Kerma civilization. Yet the question persists: where did the Kerma people obtain their materials? The region around Kerma lacks abundant mineral sources capable of producing such durable pigments. However, the blue and red pigments found on the Western Deffufa match the chemical signatures of minerals from distant, even mountainous and inaccessible regions. This suggests a far more complex network of resource exchange or mineral extraction than previously assumed for a pre-urban society. Some researchers even theorize that the Kerma people may have operated high-temperature pigment kilns capable of producing color compounds that fuse deeply into brick and stone. But no definitive archaeological evidence of such kilns has been found, making the mystery even more difficult to unravel. On the surfaces of the Deffufa, pigments appear not only as decoration, but also as geometric shapes, patterns, and abstract motifs. Some resemble celestial bodies, others depict animals, religious symbols, or unidentified signs. The combination of durable pigments and deliberate compositional structure makes the Western Deffufa appear like a visual manuscript, a kind of pictorial, sacred language unique to Kerma, even though it is not a writing system in the traditional sense. This has led historians to believe that these colors were not merely aesthetic, but a means of spiritual communication, conveying messages to deities or ancestors. Furthermore, pigments have been found even in enclosed areas where no light reaches, suggesting something remarkable The Kerma people may have used pigments not only for exterior decoration, but also to sanctify interior spaces, places where secret rituals were held inaccessible to outsiders. The Kerma elite may have used colors as tools of spiritual authority, reinforcing their divine status through symbols and pigments that only they were allowed to see. This transforms the Western Deffufa into more than just architecture. It becomes a repository of sacred memory, where pigments served as a key to preserving the spiritual identity of an entire civilization. But the enduring nature of these pigments raises yet another mystery. Why have they survived despite being buried under desert sand for millennia? Normally, mud brick absorbs moisture, breaks down, and causes pigments to fade or disappear. But the Deffufa stands firm, retaining its colors even if weathered. Some experts propose that the clay-straw grit mixture used for Kerma mud bricks contained unique ratios that allowed pigments to lock into microscopic channels within the material. Yet this remains only a hypothesis, as experimental reconstructions have not been able to replicate the effect. Others believe the massive scale of the Deffufa, with walls thick enough to create an internal microclimate, may have inadvertently preserved the pigments. Regardless of the explanation, the conclusion is the same. The pigments at Western Deffufa challenge all existing knowledge of ancient material preservation. Today, when standing before this silent monument, one does not merely see a colossal mass of brick. One sees the memory of a civilization that was once brilliant, creative, and skilled beyond our expectations. Western Deffufa proves that Kerma was not inferior to Egypt. It had its own religion, art, technology, and profound mysteries that remain unsolved to this day. Most notably, its walls painted with unyielding ancient colors stand as powerful testimony to a level of aesthetic and material science far beyond what history traditionally records. Perhaps the Western Deffufa is not just a structure. It is a message from the past, a message reminding us that the ancient world is filled with enigmas that surpass our imagination, and that these silent colors continue to tell the story of a civilization that defied time in ways we still cannot fully comprehend. Amid the windswept, dust-red highlands of Ethiopia, where long stretches of basalt cliffs stand like natural walls carved by time, there exists an almost inconceivable monument, Bete Giyorgis, the Church of St. George in Lalibela. From afar, the landscape appears like any other African plateau, rugged, arid, and ancient. But as one approaches the edge of a deep trench carved straight into the earth, it becomes clear that this place holds a wonder beyond imagination. Bete Giyorgis was not built by stacking bricks or positioning stone blocks. Instead, it is a masterpiece carved entirely from a single monolithic rock, as though the earth itself split open to reveal a sacred temple that had been waiting within for millennia. Why do you think ancient builders were able to carve an enormous structure like Bete Giyorgis from a single block of stone with near-perfect precision and without any modern technology? Share your thoughts in the comments below. When observing the structure, it is difficult to believe that the entire architecture, the roof walls, windows, sharp edges, corridors, and chambers, was created by removing thousands of tons of stone without adding a single block. This stands in stark contrast to nearly every other construction method on Earth. If the Egyptian pyramids represent the art of stacking colossal stones and the Inca temples represent the genius of precision-fitted masonry, then Bete Giyorgis embodies the opposite philosophy, creation through subtraction. The artisans did not add material, they continuously removed it patiently, revealing the shape of a structure hidden inside a massive stone. It is sculptural architecture at a monumental scale, a level of mastery far beyond what many believe the 12th century was capable of. The most mysterious aspect of Bete Giyorgis lies in its almost superhuman precision, a perfection that has turned the monument into a symbol of the inexplicable. To carve a perfectly symmetrical three-story structure from a single block of stone, the 12th century artisans must have possessed a level of measurement skill and three-dimensional spatial visualization that even modern engineers often require instruments to achieve. As they carved downward, they had to maintain walls that remained flawlessly straight without the slightest deviation. They had to ensure consistent wall thickness, the exact depth of interior chambers, and perfect proportions between the four arms of the cross, even though they never had the chance to view the entire layout from above. The tools known to have existed at the time were nothing more than iron chisels, stone hammers, and simple measuring cords. No blueprints survive, no technical notes, no physical trace that reveals how the construction unfolded. This absence of evidence makes Bete Giyorgis appear as if it emerged complete, a finished masterpiece with no recorded history of its creation, something that continues to puzzle archaeologists and inspire endless questions to this day. Ethiopian tradition tells that King Lalibela, who commissioned the 11 rock-hewn churches, was guided by an angel in a dream to build a new Jerusalem. They believed that laborers worked during the day, while angels continued the construction at night. This legend did not arise by accident. It is a cultural response to the overwhelming sense of impossibility when confronting a structure that surpasses the expected capabilities of its era. Some scholars, struck by the sharpness of the cuts and the flawless symmetry of the walls, have suggested that the builders possessed not only craftsmanship but also advanced knowledge of mathematics, surveying, and engineering. The trench surrounding the church descends more than 10 meters, forming a colossal well carved directly into the bedrock. Standing on the rim, one can look down and see Bete Giyorgis emerging like a perfect cross, rising from the earth, completely separated from its surroundings. The carved stairways leading downward appear like the arteries of the structure. Below, light filters through openings above, creating a solemn yet majestic ambience, a setting many Ethiopians believe is a meeting place between heaven and earth. This isolation has led some scholars to propose that Bete Giyorgis served not only as a place of worship, but as a ritual gateway, a symbolic descent for the soul seeking communion with the divine. Upon entering, visitors notice not the visual impression first, but the atmosphere, cool, stable, and astonishingly refreshing, even when the outside temperature is scorching. The monolithic stone structure naturally insulates sound, creating deep, soft echoes, like those heard inside ancient sacred caves. Some researchers believe this acoustic and thermal design was intentional, crafted to enhance spiritual focus and detach worshippers from the outside world. Others question how the builders could have calculated acoustic, thermal, and lighting effects with such precision, using only experience and traditional intuition. What makes Bete Giyorgis truly unbelievable is the perfection found in every interior detail, small elements that demand extraordinary precision. The stone pillars stand almost perfectly upright, without tilting or deviating even by a few millimeters. The cross-shaped windows are carved with remarkable symmetry, each line sharp and clean, as if measured with modern instruments. The arched doorways curve smoothly and evenly, showing no signs of correction or recutting. If this were a structure assembled from multiple stone blocks, one could argue that mistakes were adjusted before fitting them together. But in a monolithic structure, a single wrong cut would compromise the entire design. The biggest question remains, how did 12th century artisans achieve such accuracy? Did they rely on sunlight shadows, measuring cords, or some technical system that has vanished over time? For this reason, Bete Giyorgis still stands as a silent challenge to modern understanding. The drainage system surrounding Bete Giyorgis is one of the clearest proofs of the ancient builders' advanced technical understanding. Deep stone channels, carved precisely along the natural slope, allow rainwater to flow away immediately without flooding or eroding the foundation. Remarkably, they not only understood the direction of water flow, but also the stone's permeability and how to distribute pressure across the monolithic structure. Such meticulous calculations reveal that the architects of that era possessed knowledge that modern researchers still have to simulate in order to fully explain. For nearly 9 centuries, Bete Giyorgis has endured the harsh climate of the highlands, scorching sun, rainstorms, erosion, and time itself. The few small cracks visible today do little to diminish its grandeur. Instead, they highlight the extraordinary durability of the monolithic engineering achieved by its creators. Some attribute this resilience to the nature of the volcanic basalt. Yet even so, carving such a vast mass of rock while preserving its structural integrity is something rarely seen in any ancient civilization. All these elements give Bete Giyorgis a unique aura, not just a church, but a testament to the intelligence and deep spiritual devotion of an ancient civilization. It stands at the boundary between engineering and the mystical, between reason and legend, a place that modern understanding still struggles to fully grasp. Whether one stands at the edge of the carved pit or steps into its quiet interior, visitors are confronted with unanswered questions. Who designed it? How were its proportions calculated? What knowledge has been lost? And what inspired them to transform an entire mass of stone into a seamless monolithic sanctuary? Until these mysteries are solved, Bete Giyorgis will remain silent, enigmatic, and beyond the limits of human understanding.